Hello. Let me know if you can hear me because I haven't had a chance to test my microphone in a while. I probably should have done that before I went live. Welcome to the Seattle Overload podcast, the live show, me going solo once more. We've got two exciting topics to deal with. Well, again, I always say exciting, but I don't know if it is that exciting. It's a mess. It really is a mess. There's not much way of covering that up. But as ever with messes, sometimes there is lessons to take, and really with the Seahawks and where they're situated in their season, they need to correct this pretty soon, or it's going to get very, very bad if it's not bad already. So the two topics are going to be why and how Seahawks defense allowed 10 explosive plays, focusing primarily on 8 of those explosive plays. Plus the issues that they experienced playing only nickel defense, like they didn't have a single snap of base defense. I'll kind of talk through that and why that is. And then offensively, Pete Carroll had some really interesting comments on choosing the best routes for receivers, among other things. It's kind of the most candid he's been about the Seahawks offense. So we're going to speak about that too, Seattle's receiver skill set deployment and how I think offensive coordinator Shane Waldron is struggling with it. We've also got an injury report to deal with. But before we do all of that, and thank you KGK for saying loud and clear, let's check in with the chat. Majombo, good to see you. I was making the coffee. The reason I'm an hour, because I know when I tweeted this out, I said it'd be 5 p.m. Pacific time. I had a miserable sports moment today. Sports is bad. Sports are bad. But my sports teams are doing, so for those of you who are not first-time listeners or viewers, you'll know that I am a Newcastle United fan, and they had a very gritty Champions League performance today away at PSG in the ethically questionable derby, and unfortunately they conceded a 98th minute penalty via a highly questionable handball decision, and they drew or tied 1-1, and that was super unfortunate and upsetting. But they'll be back. It was a tough one, though. Christopher, good to see you. Scott, nice to see you in here. Thank you for tuning in. 509 Adventures, technically you're earlier than usual. I am. Now, I'm also remembering as well, I probably should have actually used the YouTube function to announce that this was happening as well. But anyway, hopefully people see it. But that Newcastle game, it was a lot. I was kind of having heart palpitations through the last 30 minutes of the game, and then they added 8 minutes on, which I don't know where that came from. So, bad sports, but could be good sports on Thursday. Kind of needs to be if Seattle wants to do something. Majombo, you say, I keep thinking about Eric Bieniemy's statement about how the Seahawks aren't a defense that's going to cause any confusion because they play straight up. That seems reflective of them being too predictable. Well, are you reading too much into that? Let me deal with that during the actual show, Majombo, after this kind of solo preamble, because I think there's elements of truth to that, but I think I think they are quite simple, but I don't think they're as simple as they have been in the past. I hate how my camera just does not focus. Like, why can't that focus? Is it the whiteboard? There's nothing on the whiteboard today, so maybe I don't need it. Is it the whiteboard? There we go. I think certainly in their front, they run the same front like all the time on Jumbo, but they move in and out of it, and there was some coverage disguise that they sprinkle in every now and again, albeit on early downs they're kind of a bit more they're less disguised. They worry more about just fitting the run, but like for like Bieniemy's offense and what they try and do, where it's just so much as we remember that all that quick game and the run pass option stuff and kind of, it's not fake, but it feels kind of how far can you take the gimmick? Maybe for that style of offense, it's kind of especially true that it's not going to cause too much confusion. But like, you know, how many turnovers did Howell have 2, 1, and some risky kind of passes. They did definitely quick game Seattle up though. When are we going to have a conversation about Derek Hall? Says Owen Sullivan. As in, Owen, when you say have a conversation, now maybe this is because I can occasionally, while I may be accused of being a coper, and I do associate with copers sometimes, don't I? I think I can be negative, and when I read when are we going to have a conversation about Derek Hall, I read that as like a negative conversation. But Owen, you may be saying positive. If you were saying positive, then it's my belief that would be actually accurate, because Derek Hall is playing really well. Now, he's not flashed much as a pass rusher, but then he doesn't actually get that many opportunities as a pass rusher. But in terms of the kind of edge setting he showed in college, that play strength, and then his kind of buy into the scheme and what Seattle asked for the outside backers this year, he is actually playing really, really solid football. He's kind of been let down by players around him at times, but he's good for like 2 to 3 plays a game where he takes out 2 blockers for the price of 1. He spills the ball to help. He's a really good player. So, yeah. Owen, let me know if you meant positive or negative, because, and if you remember with Hall, now obviously in college he was a much more kind of, he looked more like a football player than Boye Mafe. Mafe would look very raw, and he had more kind of technique things where you're like, ooh, that kind of needs coaching out of him, like his false step. But Hall, like athletic-wise, has really impressive testing, like Mafe, right? And remember the leap that Mafe made in that second year of football. He still has elements of like kind of youthfulness, rawness, lack of exposure to football. But I think Hall as a pass rusher, that kind of second season is going to be where he accelerates, and you really start seeing his value. At least that's what Seattle will be hoping, isn't it? They seem to be mixing up quite a lot this year, but we still see linemen dropping into coverage, which has burned us, says Nathan. Nathan, that is true. Linemen do sometimes drop into coverage. Now, that will come up in the actual, when I deal with why they run so much nickel, that will be a subject that we talk about. I mean, occasionally you do have to drop linemen into coverage. And the reason they dropped the linemen into coverage against Washington was it was trying to remove their quick answer to beat the pressure Seattle was running. Unfortunately, when the play broke down, because they'd removed all the options, the linemen didn't play the proper technique to then keep that running back covered up. They just played with quarterback eyes rather than plastering the running back, but the receiver out in the pattern. I did look at that. So after this podcast, if you go back and look at reviewing the Commanders tape, I really explain that in quite a lot of detail. But to me, like the linemen dropping into coverage, that's like the next stage, the next answer, smart thing. Unfortunately, they just didn't manage to execute the details, or, and why was that? Well, could be 2 brain lapses from outside backers. Could be that Draymond Jones was playing outside backer for the first time in a while. But it could also be that, and something I worry about the defense overall is, how are the details being conveyed to these players? Because sometimes it's like, quite, you'd think for the NFL, quite important things do not get executed out in the field. So then have they been coached in a way or communicated in a way by the coaching staff that makes sense to the players, is actually, getting through to the players? Scott asked, are they transitioning Derek Hall to play more on early downs? Well, yeah, Scott, that's how he's going to get on the field, really. Because your best pass rush grouping right now is Boye Mafe, Draymond Jones on the other edge, then Jaron Reed, and almost called him Jarek Reed there. Poor Jarek Reed. And Leonard Williams. That's their 4-man pass rush grouping, their cheetah pass rush grouping. So how does Hall get on the field? Well, he can be a rotational edge rusher, but remember, if they want to get rotation in there, then Darrell Taylor comes in as the speed rush kind of alternative to Draymond Jones. So yeah, if Hall wants snaps, it has to be in the early downs. And surprisingly, actually, last Sunday against who was that disappointing loss to? The Rams. Hall got out-snapped by Frank Clark, which is just, I think, probably like a circumstance thing, the way the game was shaking out. I never know how much say, like, the players themselves have in snaps, but given Clark's a veteran, he probably knows how to get himself some more snaps, because clearly in the pecking order when it came to Seattle choosing who would be inactive when they had to carry 3 quarterbacks on Thursday. It was Clark who went inactive, not Hall. Part of that also is Hall is a big special teams contributor. He plays on a lot of the special teams. And that's something I probably should have mentioned to Owen too. Yeah, Owen, so I see that you're saying you did mean a negative conversation. So I get that you're concerned that he hasn't gotten a sack yet, being a second-round pick. But like I said, lack of opportunities. And I think, he's doing what he needs to do as a rookie in terms of he's thinking when he gets on the field, run first. So why Uchenna Nwosu is such a big loss, Owen, and everyone is, as I've said before, he has that ability to get pressures from the early down situation. So when he's facing a play action pass pro look, he can read that it's play action and not a bootleg. And not a handoff, sorry. He can read it's a bootleg, and he can pop out of the block and get the pressure very quickly, or even get a sack. That requires a lot of reps and a lot of time, and Hall will be able to do that when it slows down, in theory. He seems pretty smart as a football player generally. Like, he's recognizing all types of run blocks in the run game quickly and playing them accordingly. But in terms of the pass pro stuff, I think that comes later when he's in that early down mode. Now, the late down mode is just lack of opportunities. Nathan, that's very kind. Thank you very much. Is this live strictly defense today, Big O? Okay, so no, it's not. We're going to do offense and defense. Chat, I'll let you, Big O, I'm going to go as long as, I know last time I kind of split it into 2. I'm going to go as long as we need. So if that's 3 hours, which it might be, we'll go 3 hours. I might have to do an intermission where I get more water. Vince, just curious if there's any O-line hope coming up in this show. Oh dear. Wouldn't Abraham Lucas' return make a big difference against the Dallas Cowboys? Vince, I'll try. I don't have much hope. All I'd say is the O-line would be better if everyone else was better, because it'd be in less clear passing down situations. Like, a lot of the same things we say about how it's tough on Geno Smith is how it's tough on the offensive line. Yeah, Mojombo, I saw that. I saw Uchenna Nwosu said that at was it Aaron Levine tweeted, do I mean Aaron Levine? I think I do. He tweeted out that Nwosu was at a signing event after his injury and said he hoped to be back for the playoffs. That would be crazy after a strained pec, as you say. Has Nwosu said that again? Because he is their best defensive player. Yeah, Majombo, as you mentioned, TJ Watt was out for a whole year after his. Yeah, it's not he'd have to be doing some interesting treatment, I think, to be able to get back for the playoffs. Scott says, do you think Reek Willen will get benched again if he gives up big running plays? Well, it depends. The manner. So watching back the Reek Willen stuff, it wasn't just that, and you'll see it on the explosives that we take a peek at. There was a number of plays where he just didn't look right. Like, not just not right, like playing badly, but like playing off, like he's not healthy. So it wasn't just that one McCaffrey play where he cut up inside. That was one of them, but there was a few where it was like, this guy needs to get out of here. And for Pete to pull someone like that, someone who he has a lot of belief in, someone who, heading into this year, he was their number one corner, wasn't he? Yeah, I know they took with the spoon high, but Reek was established. There had to be something a bit more going on. The shoulder thing makes sense in the explanation. David asked, any interest in Shaquille Leonard? With the scheme that they're running right now, he'd be like the Devin Bush role. Now, remember what that is. It's basically the insurance for if Jamal Adams goes down and they want to play a big nickel. Now, Devin Bush has played that, so it's technically a 2-5-4 personnel, but you have a linebacker going to the passing strength rather than a nickel. So it's like, it just looks like a 4-3 over, but why that guy goes to the passing strength is he can pressure, and when it's Bush, He just has to play a curl flat where he can reroute a slot receiver and then get out to the outside underneath space. He can blitz. He can kind of be an edge setter. He can be your extra dude off that like tight end side edge, the run strength edge. So that's where Leonard would fit in Seattle, but they kind of already have that in Devin Bush. Why the Cowboys are sniffing around Leonard is because I noticed they're using Damone Clark in like 5 fronts as like their other edge player. Well, a bit like how Seattle used to use Jordan Brooks when they played Bear as the weak side backer coming off the edge. Or it might even have been in the Sam when they had Bobby Wagner and KJ Wright back there as the off-ball guys. So yeah, they'll use him more as like a rush backer, David, whereas in Seattle's scheme, he'd be more off-ball with a few rush opportunities, I imagine. So, but yeah, I don't think they'll have interest in Leonard. Like, Bush is already there, and he didn't even get on the field against the Rams because, and I thought he would. And the 49ers, of course, I expected him. No, the Rams game I did because Jamal Adams was out, wasn't he? Yeah. So the Rams game I expected Bush to get on the field, and they just played Spoon in the slot, which speaks to how highly they think of Spoon, not just for his pass coverage or even his blitzing, but he's like he's like holding up somehow and playing the run in his own way, taking shots in his own way with his skill set and his body type. He's managing to make that work as a nickel inside, so they kind of don't need that big nickel approach if Adams can't go for a game, at least in their eyes. Also, the Rams are 11 personnel heavy, meaning, you know, not a second tight end. They really go big nickel when it's 12, 2 tight ends out on the field. Yeah, Majombo will cover the injury report. Big O, you need to start posting your videos on Reddit, underrated channel. Thank you, Big O. Well, the thing is, what really would be nice, you guys do it. You share it with people, because ultimately, if I'm just promoting it, 1, it looks a bit desperate. 2, I think that subreddit may ban the self-promotion of content, which, fine, it's understandable. And 3, yeah, word of mouth, you guys sharing my stuff is always really helpful. So please do like the video, comment down below. Yeah, Mojombo, yeah, so the Nwosu thing was after the injury that you heard that he said he'd be back. That's the same as me, yeah. Sasha saying, any reason to think our offensive struggles have to do with the loss of Dave Canales, who of course is now the Tampa Bay Buccaneers offensive coordinator, was Seattle's quarterback coach, longtime quarterback coach. Sasha, I think that's a really savvy observation. It's something I've been wondering about myself, which is probably why I think it's savvy. But I just got to be part of it, hasn't it? I mean, he's been a long time kind of bridge between Pete Carroll and then the offensive play caller, so you can't really underrate that aspect, the kind of relationship dynamic going on there. He has a real good idea of how Pete wanted to run the kind of, not that Pete designs the offensive scheme, but he has certain ideas, philosophies about how he wants the offense to be played. I think Canales has done okay, hasn't he, with Baker Mayfield? There's been some pretty good things. Just watching how he has designed that offense for Baker's skill set and his ability, it's very kind of logical. You can see it looks like the right way to go about it, even though it is ultimately Baker Mayfield. So yeah, I think Canales is a big loss, and obviously Greg Olson's coming in, and he has familiarity with long familiarity with that like Gruden style system. I know when Pete was at USC way back in the day, that's the kind of he wanted to go for like a kind of a hybrid of the Gruden thing and the Bill Walsh stuff. But yeah, it's just relationships, isn't it? Who was cut, Monjombo? Oh, Shaquille Leonard was cut because his back is still really limiting his play after a big injury. Yeah, I mean, by all accounts, all the Colts people that I follow, like, forgive me for not watching loads of Colts tape, as much as I love Pete Carroll's old system, and I like Gus Bradley to an extent. I'm not watching that, but yeah, all the Colts accounts say that he's kind of regressed, has not been the same player. Okay, well, some good questions. Thank you very much, chat. let's thank you, Jordan, for the donation. Super chat is a feature. Jordan saying, hit it, Matty. So I guess that's what I'll do. Money talks, right? Thank you very much. Welcome to the Seattle Overload podcast, where it's time to dive into the Seahawks versus 49ers tape. Yes, from that Thursday Night Football blowout loss, 31-13 at home, where Seattle threatened to get a comeback going and then didn't. We've got two key topics to look at. We've got why and how the Seahawks defense allowed 10 explosive plays and the issues they experienced playing only 5 defensive back packages. And then we've also got a look at Pete Carroll's comments this past week on choosing the best routes for his receivers, and also kind of a discussion about Seattle's receiver skill set deployment, how that's impacting them. But first, that was a damaging loss for Seattle. ESPN's Football Power Index, tweeted out by Brady Henderson of ESPN, which is a predictive model based on a bunch of simulations, now gives the Seahawks a 35.9% chance to make the playoffs and just a 0.7% chance to win the NFC West. That's down from 56.7% and /5.2% last week. And their remaining strength of schedule is 6th hardest per that ESPN Football Power Index. So kind of, it looks like a tough schedule. Advanced metrics say it's a tough schedule. Of course, they're getting ready for Dallas this Thursday. And, even if they were to beat the Cowboys and the 49ers were to lose to the Eagles, and yeah, I've gone Kopi like that, and then Seattle was able to beat the 49ers, in theory placing them on even record, you see, it wouldn't be that promising for Seattle because they'd still be second place in the NFC West based on head-to-head record, then divisional record, the fact that they lost to the Rams twice. So that's why their odds of winning the NFC West are at 0.7%. And, that would require a lot of winning and a lot of losing and vast improvement. Now, first, what we've got to look at as they prepare for that Dallas game is the Seahawks injury report. That's big enough, isn't it? Right, so noteworthy news is that Kenneth Walker, the third running back, is still out with that oblique injury. By all accounts from reporters there, it doesn't sound like he's going to go. Zach Charbonnet is going to get the bulk of the carries again, the second-round pick this year. He did okay, didn't he? He brings a kind of physical style. I think he did fine versus the 49ers, but I don't think he was helped by other things, surrounding circumstance. I wonder if we actually see Seattle stick to their messaging and run the ball more. Based on Shane Waldron's comments this past week, it sounds like no. He's talking about kind of needing first and second down success to run the football, and that's kind of efficiency speak. And so I don't think we will if the running game doesn't hit to start off with. They're not really in an established run mindset at all. They would rather get efficient via kind of quick game passes, replace the run game with that sort of stuff. So anyway, also an opportunity for Kenny McIntosh, who obviously last week we were talking excited about. I'm so disorientated by back-to-back Thursday games. I know the players are, but I'm so disorientated too. It was last week, I think. Well, but we are talking about how McIntosh would probably factor in the 7th-round pick, who obviously had that brilliant draft call with the team out of Georgia. He didn't factor in, did he? And maybe he needed another week to kind of prove that he could be trusted with a pass pro, another week kind of preparing within the game plan, etc., etc. But yeah, Charbonnet and Dallas were the ones who got the load in the past game. Dallas kind of as the passing down back, which I think is where McIntosh would immediately be able to factor in. But then again, that does require a lot of pass pro trust and understanding and work and all that stuff. Now, the other noteworthy news is that both Monday and Tuesday, right guard Phil Haynes did not practice with a toe injury, which Pete Carroll today told reporters is something he's been dealing with for a while. Haynes has not been playing well, and if he's been dealing with this kind of issue for a while, that might, partially explain that. It's not good. Obvious take there, but it's really not good. And this offensive line, the last thing they need is a kind of lack of continuity, having to replace another player. Anthony Bradford, a full participant in practice after being limited on Monday with a knee injury. He'd be the presumed replacement for Haynes at right guard. Bradford's fine. He offers a size which is more important. Not more important, but more attractive, in like the running game. But in terms of pass pro, there's just like a rookie rawness, like ultimately a rookie 4th-round pick. You would not really be expecting him to play. His real issue is handling kind of stunts and twists up front. That being said, that's been an issue for all of Seattle's interior this season, and kind of last season they had up and down moments against twists. So yeah. Now, one positive with the offensive line is that right tackle Abraham Lucas, after being a limited participant on Monday as they kind of ease him back in from that knee injury, was a full participant in practice today. That would be big. Jason Peters has played fine at right tackle, but Lucas was the projected starter heading into this year, the 3rd-round pick last season. I just think he's just overall, just while Peters has a real kind of veteran experience and he has a technique which kind of shows up more, is more refined. Lucas just offers right now, Peters is 41 years old. Like Lucas offers a bit more athletic ability, reliability, I think, down to down if he's healthy. So I anticipate seeing that play out, hopefully. They might keep him on a pitch count. It might be like a 50-50 split. Galen saying, what's my read on Charles Cross in his 2nd year? Doesn't feel like he's taken that superstar leap. I mean, it's hard on a line which is struggling in general, and it's hard on a line where you're put into really poor situations by the rest of the offense, like big-time passing downs. And also your own play as well, right? But like I'm talking, when I say the rest of the offense, negative plays from penalties not committed by the offensive line, etc., etc. He's always struggled with speed to power, and speed to power does get him occasionally, but he's really rarely beat outright, and he's often the guy who Seattle chooses to leave on an island one-on-one. So I think he's been absolutely fine. Like, if the offense starts improving like across the board, suddenly you won't talk about Cross at all, and that will be for a good reason, I think. So yeah, he's just a really solid left tackle, and you can't really underrate that, in my opinion. Right, so D. Eskridge, after a really impressive performance versus one of the few impressive performances against the 49ers, that big kickoff return, also had another play and a nice end around. He was a limited participant in practice on Monday. He's now did not participate on Tuesday with a ribs injury. Unfortunate for him. And then Derek Young making his way back, limited participant. Leonard Williams showing up with an ankle injury, which is but that's kind of making his way back from Monday where he didn't participate. Will Disley, limited participant with a hip. And Jamal Adams just resting that knee. So that's the injury report. Tomorrow we'll have a Cowboys preview where we take a deeper look at what the Dallas Cowboys are doing. But now, can I do a poll in here? I don't think I can. Chat, tell me if you want to start with offense or defense. The options are offense, where we look at Pete Carroll's comments on choosing the best routes for his receivers, Seattle's receiver skill set deployment. Or defense, why and how the defense allowed 10 explosive plays, plus the issues of their nickel exclusive approach. Is there a guest for the preview? Asked Monjombo. I'm working on that, Monjombo. Okay, so we want offense. There we go. Jen asks, question mark, Sanjay Lau. Question mark. Question mark indeed, Jen. 1 second. So, the as promised, the theme of this week is going to be Oliver Jen. Offense stinks, defense stinks, end of show. Well, thanks for tuning in, Oliver. Too long didn't watch. Kind of accurate, but there might be some things they can correct, hopefully. Benjamin Judge, super curious about the way the Niners use stunts and twists on the interior of the line. Okay, so we probably won't be looking at that, Benjamin, but what I'd suggest is go and look at that Rams game again, because the Rams game was nasty for them doing that. And the 49ers, after I said I don't think they'll use as much 5-down fronts as the Rams did, where basically the twist caused even more issues because you get man-on-man protection, one-on-ones across the line. They actually got into kind of pass-down looks where they did it. And I should have thought that too, like, with how Steve Wilkes likes to get after it on passing downs. So, yeah, I'd look at the Rams game, Benjamin. Right, so Pete Carroll, he was asked about... here you go. So his whole press conference, he literally began the press conference saying, in his opening monologue, we're looking really hard, basically, at improving stuff. We have to maximize our people and have to make sure that we're putting them in the best positions for them to contribute so that we can make our momentum felt early in the game. Okay. And now that could also apply to the defense too, which I kind of will talk about, and how Jamal Adams has been used later on. He also said, you see a guy's special stuff and try to make sure that it shows up as part of the game plan. Tyler Lockett has got them. DK Metcalf has got them. Noah Fant, they have stuff they can add to it. And finally, he said, on the offense's recent game plans, I just want to emphasize in that direction because we're fighting to get it right. I want to emphasize the guys as much as we can and see if we can maximize the players even more so. Now, the biggest comment was this, where he says, make sure we're choosing the best routes for the guys. We have unique talents and we got to make sure we're maximizing that, in an answer to a question on what does maximizing your guys on offense look like. I feel like we're not maximizing that. I feel like we're not seeing stuff. You saw the playmaking of Jackson again last night, and he continues to show stuff that separates him from others. We've got guys in different areas of our game that can do stuff, I think, better. Our tight ends can be used better than we've used them in the last couple of weeks, so we need to get that going in. We have some real positives, so we just have to make them come to life. What has happened in the past here? So it's clear he's kind of... This is very, very candid from Carroll, and I know there must be a lot of behind-the-scenes frustration between, well, with everyone of how the offense is playing, but for him to say this... And he's not pointing the finger directly at Shane Waldron, but for Pete Carroll to say this, and this is like the worst Seahawks offensive product I can remember in quite some time. But for him to go and outwardly say this is a lot. So let's get up the tape and have a look at why exactly, what are some plays which kind of point to receiver skill sets being an issue. Now, if we look at Seattle's receivers, as we spoke about in the past on this show, and I believe Griffin spoke about as well, Ty has touched upon, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, Jackson Smith-Njigba, Will Dissly, Noah Fant, Colby Parkinson, Jake Bobo's emergence, the ability of D. Eskridge, the kind of speed dimension he brings, that looks like a pretty good receiving group, doesn't it? Looks like you could win in a variety of ways. However, the skill sets of these guys, I think, is causing Shane Waldron a bit of a headache in terms of how he deploys them. So what I mean by that is, especially in certain areas, say the red zone where you've only got 20 yards, maybe even like the low red zone where 15 yards and in, how are you going to get DK Metcalf open in those areas? And how are you going to get him the football? Because DK Metcalf as a receiver, despite being a tall guy, he's not really a contested catch maker, is he? He's not that reliable. You wouldn't really throw him a back shoulder fade route or even a high shoulder fade route where he's got to go and catch a jump ball. That's not really his game. Tyler Lockett, this year, his speed, it looks kind of diminished slightly. He doesn't look like the same kind of speed player, but he's almost a vertical downfield stretcher. He's kind of struggled to separate against guys when he's been pressed. Skill set wise in the red zone, things get a bit weird. And then Jackson Smith-Njigba is a rookie, and he's like a pure slot type right now in the league. So there's certain situations where I think Waldron gets kind of weirded out by stuff, and I think he's also trying to work out how best to get DK Metcalf the football without being predictable. And right now it's been, of late, it's been rather predictable. So there's a few plays to me that are slightly confusing. And thank you very much. Before I miss that, Lloyd, thank you so much for the donation, saying appreciate your work. Thank you, Lloyd. Appreciate that. And Majombo points out, Kerry says, DK's a solid run blocker. Why not bring him in tight, chip, and then let him leak out under routes going to the other side, or motion him to draw more attention? There is a lack of motion to the offense, Kerry. I think that's an interesting point. They don't motion much, like something I'll talk about. Majombo saying, looking back, it does seem like the offense has struggled similarly since 2022 outside of the Lions and Saints games. I agree, Majombo. Heck, even Waldron 2021, there's a few kind of things where you're like, how similar is that? I need to go back and look at that. Majombo, Waldron has worked with Cooper Kupp. Time to put Jake Bobo front and center. Absolutely right. The 6'4" Cooper Kupp. So, let me remove this and do this. Is that good? That's better, isn't it? That's beautiful. Right. Well, let's not get carried away. So I'll get my pen in a second. Apologies for the transition time. I never know how long that is too long to just be quiet for. Right. Let me get that actually over there. Where is that gone? Ah, perfect. Right. Can you see that? No, that's not perfect. 1 second. Let me unruin myself here. Why won't this work? That's why. Right. That should work now. So the pen. Perfect. Right. So let's go to this play. Skill set wise, Seattle does a few things which are slightly weird to me. Now, one player in your offense is always going to face press. So here, Tyler Lockett's the guy that they choose to face press coverage, which he's been able to beat press in the past, but not really in the intermediate. He's more kind of on the deep fade stuff. But in the intermediate to short, getting him to face press coverage is not ideal. Here they've got Noah Fant as the lone tight end, nub tight end, so it tells them they're facing man coverage. This is a safety down here. The corner is not here. They've got their corner here, their corner here, their nickel here. So Gino knows he's getting man coverage. There's a post safety, so it's likely to be cover one of some sort. Now, on the play, the fact that you've got Tyler Lockett facing man coverage, they try and get him to execute a pick or rub route for JSN. And that is not, like, the spacing between these two is an absolute catastrophe. There's not, Lockett's meant to be picking for JSN, but JSN ends up past Lockett's pick and running into the defender. So it's just an absolute mess. And skill sets wise, it would make more sense to have DK Metcalf be the guy setting the pick and Lockett running this out route. No? Would to me. It's a catchable pass for DK in the end, but it's a tough one with how the defender actually plays him. But skill set deployment wise, this is weird. Jen asks, is JSN screwing up his route running? Well, Jen, he has to run his route, so maybe he could have run it more shallow, but ultimately Lockett gets so jammed up at the line, JSN can't be staring at Lockett while running his route. He's kind of relying on that to be set more effectively. 5011 says DK was held on that play. Yeah, kind of, but do you know what the 49ers DBs are really good at 5011? They undercut and play the ball. So when you undercut and play the ball, you can tug with that left arm to get in phase, and the official's not going to see that. He's going to look at your other arm, your near arm, punching the ball. So they've got the art nailed down. Now here, Noah Fant also really struggling to beat press coverage. But yeah, this to me as a receiver skill set thing is slightly unusual. Now, remember that Lockett is the one setting the pick there. 32-16. Right, so this is the 3rd and 8 where Chris Collinsworth was like, Gino's just got to lob it up. He had a shot there. And I mean, I'll play it through for you guys so you can kind of see what happens. There's an obvious 2 parts of it. So, first of all, motioning JSN out. They've got the nub tight end. This looks like man-to-man again. This is a safety on the tight end. There's no corner over here. The corner's over here. That's the nickel. The corner's here. The corner's here. You know you're getting probably cover 1. And sorry, I forgot your name, but someone asked about the twists which happen. Well, this is a kind of ripe for a twist look because it's a mugged overload front. So if you're interested in that, have a look at that, I guess. But we're looking at receiver skill sets. My audio's cutting out. Is my audio cutting out for anyone else? Because if it is, that's not very good. Is my audio cutting out? Okay, Jen, might be your internet. Thank you, 5011. So yeah, skill set wise, again, this is, thank you, David. Thank you, TJ Gamer. Thank you, Big O. Thank you, Jordan. Thank you, chat. Right, so Lockett is the one here who's running the deeper route, and DK is running the drag. So again, Lockett's the one responsible for clearing this out. It's man-to-man, but Lockett's running the pick. The idea, hopefully, is that causes some traffic for this defender. The defender has to go underneath. DK's open. I'll talk about DK's route in a second. But why is Lockett the one who's setting the pick here for DK? Surely, again, skill sets wise, put DK as the guy who has to deal with the press. Have him run through someone, and then have Lockett run the underneath or JSN. Kind of weird to me. So, anyway, DK out of this cut. Look how slow DK is running across the field. So they've put him there because they're like, we want a burner skill set wise to be able to speed up, but he's really slow, and I don't know if he's waiting for Lockett to clear, but it's so slow across the field from DK Metcalf. Now, could this ball have come out from Gino? I think he had to anticipate. Well, this is kind of a problem with the Jen. We'll talk about Sanjay. We'll talk about Sanjay, Jen, in a second. So 3rd and 8. One problem with Seattle's offense, and Geno Smith made some interesting comments as well. Well, is they kind of go down the field all the time. They never throw short of the sticks. And here, this looks like a play where they should throw short of the sticks. By the time Geno gets to DK Metcalf in his progression, it's like he's been reading deep to short. So if I just go to the vision of Geno, so snap, checks the post safety, checks that he's getting single high man coverage, confirms that with his eyes, then looks at Noah Fant. So he's thinking, I'm going to go for Noah Fant. Noah Fant, he doesn't like how that's been pressed. So now he's waiting here for this Lockett and DK thing to play out. That ball has to come out. I don't know why he clutches the ball, but I think the reason I say I don't know why he clutches the ball, I think he clutches the ball because DK's kind of slow out of his cut. Again, if we go to the wide copy, Geno's on DK here. The first down marker's here. DK's so slow to get going, or just slow, that the positioning there is tight. So then I think he wonders about maybe trying back to go to Fant, and he's got a rusher right in his face from the twist, which wins. So we talk about throwing it up. Well, he definitely could have just thrown it into this area immediately when he saw Fant pressed. But in terms of his progression, and we've talked about the skill sets of having Lockett do the pick, but his progression is checking the post safety, looking at so checking the post safety, looking at Fant. That's been pressed. So he comes back here, when his back foot hits, this is kind of messy and DK's here. But this brings me nicely to a comment from Geno Smith about, let me get it up. Is this it? Yeah. No. Pete Carroll mentioned how the ball needs to come out quicker and how that's not just on the quarterback. And Gino replied in terms of what he's seeing. He said, just processing and going through reads and getting the ball out to the design guy within the rhythm of the play and the offense. Coach is right. I've been probably holding the ball a little bit too long to try and see guys open instead of what I normally do, which is to throw them open. So if we go back to this play here, just throw into this spot here, and if DK doesn't get to it because he's run slow out of his route, that would be, on him. Just throwing here, rather than trying to wait for him to break and then allowing that to develop, would be the move, wouldn't it? And Gino at his best would do that, but I think this is a guy who's, one, worried about turning the football over, but two, playing a bit gun shy. And 3rd and 8, in an 11-point game where this is kind of your drive, just get rid of it. They're showing pressure. Even if your receiver's slow, even if it's weird that you've got Lockett running the pick, even as Galen says, why not have Jackson Smith and Jigba be the one running the crossing route? Even with all those things, just throw it to that spot. Just throw the guy open. And so it's cool that Gino's kind of acknowledging he needs to do that. Although that would be a nuts kind of throw, and I don't think it would get the first down with how slow DK was. Look at that receiver. He's right in phase when that ball would have come out. So I do question why he's so slow. He's kind of jogging across. Really, that's the fastest DK Metcalf is? Okay. Now I know he's dealing with bunions. I have not had bunions, so I don't know what they do to someone, but yeah, so Coach is right. I've been probably holding the ball a little bit too long to try and see guys open instead of what I normally do, which is to throw them open. Just trusting the guys, trusting myself, believing in what we're doing and getting the ball out and making sure that I'm throwing it pretty accurately so the guys can make catches and make great plays because they're great players. Question, why the hesitation? Is it protection thing, coverage thing? What has you hesitant? I would say it's a little bit of all. The thing is to continue to rep it, continue to practice, continue to believe in it, and like I said, trust it and throw it and let the guys make the plays. So, Now, why does the protection struggle in this situation? For the person who asked about twists and stuff, when you get this type of look, 5 guys down at the line of scrimmage, there's also this guy trying to keep the back in, I think, but you have 2 options, but most of the time they'll just man it up, so they'll play man here, man here, man here, and then man here, man here. That's the simplest way to do it. Or what you can do is you can slide here, play man on this side of the field, and then have the back come here. But with this guy, do you want to do that? You'd have to be hot off him if you're the quarterback. So that's why teams run these overload fronts and then mug them up, because you're most likely to get man across the board like so. Now, watch what the 49ers do. Similar thing to what the Rams are doing with a slightly different front look, but still 5 guys down. All they do is twist on this side and twist on both sides. So this guy's picking. This guy's kind of loop around. This guy's picking. This guy's picking. This guy's looping around. They're all in man, but they don't pass off the twist very well. Now also they're expecting the ball out here, ball out here, ball out here. Now it's a bit too late. So Blythe does a... Blythe? Why do I always call him Blythe? Just because his name begins with B and he's a white centre. Brown, my surname. I should be able to do this. He manages to work back okay, but the problem is Phil Haynes, who's sort of seen that this guy's coming back, it's quite a lot to ask him to then work to this as well. He's gone from quite an aggressive set, and it would have been okay if the ball had come out, but Gino didn't throw it. And DK, really, if he's quicker at his break, DK's here. He's too slow out of his cut. And Gino should just throw it here anyway, but I don't know why DK is so slow out of his route. It's man coverage. I mean, maybe he's waiting for this pick to develop from Lockett, or like not wanting the defender to just undercut him across the field. But surely you know it's man. Just win the foot race. This is your 40-yard dash again. Just sprint. This is a real jogging effort. We all know DK Metcalf's faster than that. No mention of 91. 50-11. What does 91 do? What do you mean by that? 91's the guy who squeezes through because Haynes tries to retrace with this. He's already set quite aggressively out here, and then Blythe Brown, he works back for the loop of this, and then 91 squeezes between the two of them. You see here. But really the ball should have come out. But this is also tough on Gino as well here. So the ball's too late out. That's another thing with the skill sets and the offense and everything. The kind of timing of like just the route concepts. The receivers get later to spots than I think they should, like with the quarterback's footwork and stuff. Gino hesitates when he sees the inside pressure, says 50-11. I think, yeah, there's been very much that kind of flash of colour here. He's worried about throwing that, and also if DK's here, then I think it becomes an easier decision. But yeah, it's all just a bit off, and it has been for much of the struggles this season. It's kind of what it looks like. Now another thing I want to talk about. So I said about how Waldron kind of gets befuddled by Metcalf's skill set, or not befuddled, but he's like working out ways to work with him. So this 3rd and 9, right at the start of the game, you know, Eskridge had run back that run, and it had been really exciting, hadn't it? Watch DK Metcalf on 3rd and 9. I can tell you he's going to run against the pass rush who are, you know, having success. He's going to run a deep in or a deep out. He has 3 routes in each different situation, basically, and DBs know that. And Kerry mentioned maybe like motioning guys, like having them do that kind of, you know, you could have them do that kind of cheat motion that the Dolphins were using, like the Rams used against Seattle to success. DK's just really predictable right now in each situation, and so the DB here, DB here knows I need to play inside leverage because I'm likely to get an in, but also the split is he just wants to play inside leverage, and then he opens to defend the fade or be able to break to the out, but he also knows how to throttle back inside for the undercut. Gino throws this fairly early. Could have thrown it a tick earlier, but ultimately with how the post safety is and this route running right into it, which isn't ideal, he kind of has to throw it to the spot he does. And DK just gets undercut because the DB's all over the route. Knew exactly what route it was. There's another kind of subtle enough little tug here with the left hand, but because it's for the undercut, they don't call that sort of stuff because it's subtle enough. And there you go. Now, pass pro wise, they did a okay job there. There's enough time to get it out, although I said about how they have issues with twists again. And Fant, as soon as his guy goes inside, he releases on his route. Peters plays as though he's expecting a bit more help than that, I'd say. The way he sticks on that all the while. But yeah, I don't understand why. And JSN's had route running mix-ups in the past. I don't know why you would run this close into each other. He surely has to bring that more upfield to clear off that and create more room out here. I don't know why he breaks it like that. Maybe he thinks he's the one getting the football, but that's a nasty look. And they do almost collide. And I think that also affects DK's route as well, because there's that glimpse of colour. But ultimately, DK, they know what route he's running, and the DB goes right through the back of him, which can't happen. Jack, good to see you. So we sort of talked about spacing a bit, as talked about skill set a bit. That was a spacing example. Now have a look at the spacing on this play. So another third down, 3rd and 4. So don't forget that JSN did have his wheel catch after this, his one-handed catch. But this isn't where like Gino. I think a confident Gino throws this route here. I think he comes back and just throws it. This flash of color is alarming for a quarterback, though. If you watch from the end zone angle here, he should throw that. But this flash of color off the edge, and then this is what he means by throwing guys open, though. He should just ping that here and just rifle it in, even with the DB over the top. But the primary concept that they've run here is designed to be, again, another rub between JSN and Lockett, or like a switch release kind of thing, where Lockett is supposed to pick this defender who's meant to be man on JSN. So the idea for Seattle is that Lockett eliminates this. This defender comes in to get to JSN, to get to Lockett, in man-to-man. So this defender comes in like this, and then JSN has all of this room to work with. But the 49ers, and again, I don't understand, surely in film study you'd have seen a team run stacks. Maybe they switched up how they handle stacks in this game. They just make an in and out call, and the primary concept is absolutely there's just nothing there. Absolutely rubbish. So, but yeah, again, a hot Gino. He checks over here to start off with. I think to look at the safety rotation, and it's a unusual concept in that it's more disguised. It's just cover one, where we're playing 2-on-1 on the back. We're man. I'm in the post. Gino looks at this, I think, to check what this safety's doing, and then he tries to hit his rub route combination, which doesn't work. They've been awful at executing rub routes basically all game. But here, Gino looks out here first after checking that safety. His man beat is not open. At this point, he could... a confident Gino backs himself and knocks it in here and just gives that guy a shot, rather than worrying about this flash of colour. And so down he goes. Jen, I see you're saying Gino has to run it himself when the pocket collapses. I think he's been doing a right job of that. But, I mean, watch this play here. Where's he running here? There's no... I mean, he can't really... There's no space. Now, this next play, I think, is the play which inspired Pete Carroll's comment about the receiver skill sets. I don't understand the offense deployment here. And by the way, it's 3rd and 7 in the low red zone. Not a great situation because this is all that they have to defend. So you're going to get very tight coverage. Indeed, looks like cover 1, doesn't it? There's that overload pressure look with the 2 backers walked up. Now, design-wise, it looks like the read is to check the post safety and then throw it to this over route to Noah Fant. And then look outside to DK. But the timing of the offense is... like, everything takes too long to get open for Gino's liking. Like, Fant is pressed up at the line of scrimmage. Gino moves off that. And it's 2-on-1. He looks for DK, and DK's... By the time he's looking off DK, DK gets open, but then the pocket's breaking down. JSN's getting open too late for Gino. Just a messy timing play. Now, when Gino talks about throwing guys open, this is something where, I mean, if you just throw that to the spot and give DK a chance, he might come down with that catch. He might make that catch because, look, he does kind of separate against the man coverage. But this is also an instance where turnovers will start to happen as well because these guys are getting kind of choked out. This is a hold which the DB gets away with. But the top of the route work takes too long for Gino to get to. And then JSN would have been interesting, but this move also takes ages. So my point is as well on this receiver skill set discussion being the focus, and the windows are minuscule, Oliver, you're exactly right. My point here as well, this would be a place where if you could do a pick route or do some rub concepts, this would be the area to do it because they're asking for that sort of stuff. Instead, you're just running, you're playing ISO ball with JSN. You've put him in a position where he's going to get pressed. Like, would it not be better to have him more off the line of scrimmage so that he's more protected from press? Remember, you only need one of these guys to be on the line of scrimmage. You also have Tyler Lockett on the line of scrimmage, so you've got Lockett into press, but you've got Fant as your free release. Your primary read here is Fant over the middle into a post safety and an outside leverage DB. Like, you got him 2-on-1, basically. The only obvious, like, skill set deployment is Metcalf 1-on-1 as the ISO X receiver, but he always lines up basically in this position. It's pretty predictable at this point from the offense. Like, skill set wise, why not have Fant be the one who faces press, even though he struggled with it? Have JSN further from the line of scrimmage. What if you had Lockett there and then you try a pick? Hindsight is 2020, but you're putting your guys in tough spots. Like, the reason you play press is so you can disrupt stuff like that. So while you do get open, it happens too late. Oh, thank you very much, John. Goodbye. Big O, you said, what's the down and distance on this? I hope you're talking about this play. This was 3rd and 7. The previous one we looked at was 3rd and 4. So this again is the... And they got the... pre-snap, they got a man coverage indicator with how they looked at Fant and the safety followed it. So they knew they were getting man coverage. This is their best man beater, apparently. They gave up on the rub idea after that first one didn't work. But John deserved that. So here, there's the mugged up presentation. 5 down with this 6th guy as well. So the 49ers know that they're getting big on big, basically. With the back probably checking on this guy. Now, if we play it through, I think they run another twist. Yeah, so they're picking. Nick Bosa's coming into this area, and I think they're doing the same thing where they're doing that. So last time it was this player who got free. Let's see how Seattle handles it. Brown does a really good job there. Ultimately, it's this part of the protection which is a problem. Moves Gino off his spot. Cross gets caught turning, not staying square. But really, if you had a concept worth a damn for 3rd and 7 pass pro, you know, you've got time to get two. He's got time to read here, and then he gets to read over to DK as well before the sack happens. And Big O, more Jake Bobo has never been needed more than ever. Yeah, I mean, he can separate in those areas. So Gino checking the post safety, having a glance at Fant. Oh, he didn't actually ever look back at DK, did he? That might be looking at DK. So I think it's more looking at the post safety and DK and then looking to Fant. So, and DK I think took too long. No, it might just have looked at the post safety. So their primary really was this Fant thing, and it's just never open. Nathan, what is our best red zone personnel in your opinion? Well, this is the thing, Nathan. Like, they have a lot of interesting options in theory. I think I've spoke about DK as his route tree being a bit predictable, particularly in these situations, and he can't really build up the speed of like, or there's not enough room to throw him like the deep sideline fade. In like a 3rd and 7 like this, like, are you really going to be able to throw him a post? Or not really. You run out of room. So he's basically a slant runner. Here they try get him on a deep out, and it does get open, but he just takes too long in his route, I think. I think Bobo he works in there, as silly as that sounds, because he's kind of got an agility and then a frame and a size, which is like a really intriguing matchup. But ultimately, it's more how the personnel been deployed, and then it's the kind of situations that they're in, and then it's like, I mean, the play before this, right? So DK here runs a deep out. Look at the play before this from JSN here. He just runs a comeback, where he gets held to crap. But it's a pretty similar design where on this play you have shallow over the middle, comeback, back of the end zone, right? Now, that should stay where it is. So we had that on the last play, right? Now on this play, look what we have. We have instead of the over the ball route, we have JSN running out. That's the only, basically the only difference. DK runs a compared to what JSN ran on the last play. DK runs an out, but it's just like going win your 1-on-1. It's like, great. Okay, we could have a man beater in, like we. And I think the other problem as well, and this is something Griffith spoke about, these types of concepts where Lockett in the red zone, you want to give him like a long developing crossing route, or like a chance to get open off improvisation where he runs around the back of the end zone and then runs back, that sort of stuff. Kind of the same with DK, where if you give him this and the ball doesn't go there immediately, he's able to post up, do that kind of deke move. Is it called that? The ice hockey term. Anyway, he acts like he's not getting the ball with the defender's back turn, and then he catches the ball very quickly. But that takes time. And in a 3rd and 7, when they're able to do this, and you're having difficulties with how you handle their stunts, and you've only really got time to give the primary and maybe a bit of time for the secondary, you just don't have the time to do it. So, again, they're kind of the personnel, the receiver skill sets that they have on the field, like with Lockett and Metcalf, when they're in the red zone in particular, they need time to get open, especially when playing like ISO ball. Thank you, Jen, for confirming my ice hockey knowledge there. Right. Now, those were like some skill set things I had to talk about. Now, DK Metcalf, did anyone see his press conference? He did a press conference on Sunday. I'm so discombobulated. And also on that point about stuff taking time, because 50-11, I'm seeing that you're saying about 2 seconds not being enough time. Think of the good drive Seattle's had this year, right? There's a few things which happen. One, the run game is fairly efficient, and they're able to kind of sprinkle that in. Two, they're very rarely in clear passing down situations, so they're not exposing the offensive line, they're not exposing the quarterback. And then three, the O-line, either the first read is open for Geno, so he reads the coverage, the design first throw is open and he hits it, or he has the time to progress to the next read, not feel uncomfortable and throw it. Ultimately, for a variety of reasons, it's not just the O-line, teams can't play and will not play this look in 1st and 10, 2nd and 5. But 3rd and 7, they will load up and do this stuff and tee off on you. So, really, Geno, when he's not pressured so much, it will look a lot better because his process in the pocket is still like sound. Now, there's a few throws he's turning down where you're like, or there's a few throws where you're like, he could have thrown that up, but then that's when problems can occur as well. Really, he just needs more time to be able to read out concepts. And that LTR's, Big O says perfectly timed rub routes and the inability to do that, I guess you're saying, is an indictment on the coaching, Matty. I mean, yeah, it kind of is. Now, Sanjay Lal is the offensive coordinator, and is not the offensive coordinator, is the wide receivers coach, and I don't know, like, there's a few things this season which have happened. I'm going to have an article on this, SeahawksOnTape.com, where there's been a number of route running mix-ups this season where it's basically based on how the receiver breaks off their route depending on the coverage they have. And I don't know if they've pushed the envelope too far, like if they've tried to do too much, they've given the receivers too many options. But like it's happened on a number of occasions, albeit I don't think we saw a clear example of it in this game. But another thing that I wanted to talk about when it comes to the route running and the receiver coaching is DK Metcalf. So his press conference, he admitted, and it was a really good press conference from him. He was very candid, very open, as always, really respectful of reporters. I kind of appreciate that when a player, he doesn't do coach speak or player speak. He just is flat out with it and honest and upfront. And he said he's been trying to do too much. And let me just get the quote up here. That's not it. Right, so he said, so let's say they're in cover 1 or cover 2 and I have a sight adjustment, which is what I'm talking about when I say that they adjust their routes based on the coverage they get and that sort of stuff. Or I have to change my route. I can't change my route and try to do the scramble response. I have to finish my route first and then go to the scramble response. Or I may have to hold a DB with my route and not try to get myself open first and then try to hold the defensive back. So not try to do two things at once and trying to, finish my route first and then go on to the next step. And then Greg Bell of the Tacoma News Tribune asked a decent follow-up where he's like, how often have you caught yourself doing that thing? And he said, just watching film, I catch myself doing it quite a bit. So I was like, that's interesting, because there are times where I'm like, why is DK not finished his route there? That would have created an opportunity for someone else. I go back and watch his 49ers game, and I'm like, oh, DK could have finished his route there. That's literally what he's talking about. So let's get to the example. So scramble rule early, he talks about. And again, it's cool that these veterans are being given this power to kind of improvise their routes. So watch DK Metcalf on this play here. I don't know if this is the most obvious example. Could be a bad example. The other one I have is better, but there's a few things I'll tell you what I've seen here. So firstly, this is cover 3, right? So all they're doing is, this is the third corner, this is the post safety. How they're playing it is the post safety, when he sees the cross, is going to nail down. This guy's going to replace him in the post, okay? So just watch how they play the cover 3. I've got an over route, point it out to my teammate. I'm the post safety. I'll drive to the over. I'll replace him in the post. So it looks like cover 2 at the end, right? And he just finds the over. Fred Warner is a nutter. He's so good. He finds in the weak hook, he finds the race route. So they basically flood their coverage like that, okay? DK, though, in terms of scramble rule here, he tries to sit down in between 2 hook zones, right? Parkinson's running here. DK should be the intermediate and Lockett's the flat, okay? If DK had kept running, Fred Warner is going to follow him all the way, okay? Promise you. That his assignment as the weak hook is to get under this route. Parkinson is going to draw this guy here. So if DK keeps running, imagine the impact on the play for Gino, who's keeping the football. DK keeps running, Fred Warner goes this way, and this guy probably tries to get underneath it. Gino basically can read off this guy whether he can keep the football up here, where that would be a lot of space, because these guys wouldn't be here. They'd be over here, right? It's a lane that DK's instead, and we know he's candidly admitted this himself, thank you very much, he instead tries to break here as though it's like a scramble drill, where does end up as a scramble, but he needs to finish his route first before doing that. His route would be to go here, and then he could work for the scramble improvisation. But instead, because he didn't do that, and look, this curl flat player is really keen on trying to find anything deep. He doesn't think Gino's going to scramble. Instead, Gino is able to get yards, but this defender is able to come up quicker. And this guy, Fred Warner, is on the inside, whereas Fred Warner would have been, and I know this is a lot of if, buts, and maybes and projection, but I'm telling you, this guy would have been here. So Fred Warner would have been here. This guy would have probably been with his back turned here. Then suddenly it's just this guy, and it's a really wide alley. So that's one example of DK not, finishing his route, doing the scramble early. Now this was another one. So 1st and 10 in the red zone. Something Seattle loves doing. They love putting 4 to one side. It then becomes of, are you one-on-one with DK? How do I find out? Well, I look at this guy. If he goes over this side, then I've got 4 to one side of the field over here, and I can pick on, 1, 2, 3, 4, realistically. Maybe this guy pushes over. We'll have to see. If this guy goes over here and tries to get the numbers back for them, give them an extra guy to the 4 on this side, then I've got a one-on-one over here. I can throw the go ball. I can throw a slant, etc., etc. So if we watch how this plays out, and by the way, they're showing, this might be cover 1. Just the contours of that look like cover 1, but let's play it through. Nope, doesn't look like cover 1. Looks like quarters to me. And how do we know that, by the way? Because they've shifted Parkinson out wide. Look who follows him. Corner bumps out. Would you play a corner over a tight end in man-to-man? No. So Gino alerts the play. They clearly run the coverage that they want to beat zone coverage here. This guy creeps over here, but Gino knows because of this linebacker location, probably how the 49ers handle this push, that there's a window here still, even though this guy pushes over here. And it's actually, like, the way that they play it, there's no eyes on the quarterback. So they're like bracketing DK with real kind of eyes for DK. Then this guy's opening for the 4 side to take something back here. It's like a match cover 4. This guy's here. This guy's here. This guy's got his eyes here. Watch DK's slant route here. This is going for a scrap. He ran like a 4 steps on his slant, didn't he? Okay. So Gino takes off. Nice gain, nice gain, nice gain, nice gain. Brilliant. If DK had kept running over here, right, this guy is going to try and get in the window. This corner is going to follow him because he's basically playing man on him. They're like bracketing over here. It's like suddenly all of this part of the field would not have a defender in it. And Gino, I believe, we'll never know, but I think if DK continues on the route, he's able to get into the end zone. Look, this guy is like, hell yeah, I'm getting right into the slant. If DK keeps going, okay, he can get into the slant. This guy can go into the slant, but then suddenly all of that is Gino's. So I think that's kind of what DK's talking about. He didn't need to go into scramble mode there. He needed to kind of recognize he's getting comboed. It's man coverage. If Gino's going to break the pocket, I need to run up in here to create the space out here. So those are the 2 plays I can think of with the offense where, you know, Gino's talking about it and DK, is talking about it, and that's the sort of stuff he can do a bit better. You can see it from this angle. Watch the safety's eyes, how he's only looking at DK as soon as the ball snapped. He doesn't ever look at the quarterback. It's like a man bracket on the backside of the 4. Look. And then he only comes off. He's still playing to bracket DK and only comes off eventually. So there was real leverage that DK could have found for his quarterback there. Right, so that's kind of the offense. Let me just deal with some of the kind of skill set discussion, and then some of the route running stuff, and then a bit of Gino needing to kind of be more aggressive, and maybe we'll see that happen. Throw the ball kind of earlier to guys, not wait so much. Let me scroll up because it's been a while. Benny Boy, keep up the great content. Love from a Hawks fan in New Zealand. Thank you, Benny Boy. That's cool you're in New Zealand. The Matty F. Brown, right? The F has a... it's not football. Sorry to shatter the illusion. The F has a New Zealand connection. But long-time listeners of the podcast might know what that is, but you can work it out. Let me see what else is here. Mad King Matty says Jen. Yeah, true. Okay, so Dan, you said about putting Charbonnet on a wheel. That would be cool, wouldn't it? And they have run mesh wheel in the past. Mesh is one of their better concepts, but on 3rd and 7 it becomes difficult because you're throwing short of the sticks. But it's okay to throw short of the sticks sometimes. Ultimately, what they're doing right now, where they're trying to get it into the end zone, that ain't working. So maybe we could get some rubs off mesh, and then a wheel route to Charbonnet out the backfield. Well, that's a cool idea as well. But the problem with that is the way that the 49ers are playing the 6 guys down. You kind of have to keep your back in, because if the other guy comes, then the option is to throw it to Charbonnet hot, and make that guy peel off. But protection wise, they're trying to keep him in. It becomes a bit difficult. They're kind of dictating where the football goes. If you release your back, it has to go to the back. 5011 says Gino isn't being uber aggressive. The thing is, Dallas, San Francisco, Philadelphia are our next 3 matchups. How shall we attack them? Better. How about they attack them better? That would be good, wouldn't it? Yeah, I don't know. It's a good question. Monjombo, always love candid pressers. It's at least a little more encouraging than generic. We have to do better. 5011 lol. DK explaining how he's left Gino high and dry. He. Um. Yeah, I mean there was two examples there, wasn't there? How it, the offense right now they're just so sloppy with their details and the way that they execute. And we haven't even looked at the penalties that they committed this game and the negative plays. None of these were well, a few were actually. But that Geno scramble wasn't a negative play. It just could have been a gain which wasn't quite optimized, maximized because of patchy execution. Kind of scares me of DK Metcalf saying that, says Kerry. He's still young, but he's played a lot of ball now. He needs to become smart Hulk. Yeah, Kerry, I mean, at least he's acknowledged it. The thing I think with DK Metcalf is, look at what AJ Brown's done in the league. And he's playing in an amazing offense for his kind of skill set. But, some extra details to DK's game, he could be so, so good. But he's also in a bad situation right now, like all of the players. So it's not fair to fully judge him just on this. But, I guess it's good that he's acknowledged it, he's recognised it, he's aware of what he needs to work on. Jackson Smith and Jigba's emergence, I see some of you talking about that in the chat. That's big for the offense right now. They really need a spark. Galen Rock, I'm even more concerned about Shane Waldron now. This is a stunning lack of attention to detail. Well, yeah, it is part, obviously the OC is the one who's ultimately responsible, but like I mentioned, Sanjay Lal is the receiving coach. That's someone you could point at. The OC basically does the plays, they design the plays, but for it to be executed in the right fashion, their vision needs to be communicated well by the play designer, but the positional coaches are super important in kind of carrying that out and getting that done, and how they coach those techniques. I wonder who Waldron... I think Waldron spends time with the quarterbacks when it's not... Because obviously, you don't just stand and watch the whole time. Or maybe he does. I don't know. I'm more experienced with defensive stuff when it comes to that aspect. I know he has... Does he have a background with tight ends a bit? Oliver, thank you so much for the donation. What's our offensive philosophy? Miami is speed kills, creative play calling kills. 49ers is pick your poison, Christian McCaffrey or Deebo Samuel. Well, what I'd say, Oliver, is the 49ers is that in terms of how they use their personnel, but ultimately the 49ers philosophy is using their kind of base look to be as diverse as possible, hit those kind of intermediate windows, but ultimately the run action is setting up everything off that and the layers off that, and they can line up in the same personnel each time, but with different people at different positions. What's cool about Deebo Samuel, and I'll talk about this when we look at the defenses, he can be your kind of running back type at times. McCaffrey can be your slot receiver type at times. Kittle can be your fullback at times, but he's also a really good blocker as well as his receiving ability. Kyle Juszczyk can be a tight end type at times. It's really difficult to defend and with the motions and the shifting that they do. Miami's is definitely speed from a personnel standpoint, but it's the same. They're running the same offensive style as the 49ers. And there's a bit of that kind of versatility too. So you asked, what is the offensive philosophy of Seattle? I think that's part of the problem. I think Waldron doesn't really know, or he hasn't been able to get the receivers working in a way that suits them. Just not quite fitting. And I think there's been some kind of pushing behind the scenes. Just reading in between the lines what the tape's showing, they're trying to get more deep play action shots in. They're trying to run the ball. Well, they're not actually. They haven't run the ball that much more, but I think they're trying to get back to a bit more schemed up deep shots. Right now, I'd say the one key theme to the offense is they try to be really, really efficient. Meaning, if something isn't working, they will go like the run. If they're not getting efficient first and second down runs, like I said earlier, they'll just replace that with quick game passes. Maybe get into empty, spread them out, try throw the quick game. And for most of the season, they've been very, very efficient on first and second downs. They've managed to avoid a lot of negative plays. The issue's been the third downs, and the third downs being third and long, and that's not just because, that's partly because third downs they've been penalised, they've been backed up, they've had negative plays from stuff which isn't inefficient first and second downs, it's from their own, like committing penalties and stuff, unforced errors. So yeah, I mean, I'm talking around this subject. I don't know if there is... That part of their problem is they don't really know exactly what they want to be with their current personnel. Whereas you talk about Miami and the 49ers, they have a very clear idea of what their personnel is and how to deploy that. It's like absolutely insane. Watching those two, the contrast between Seattle and that. But what I'd say is the high early down pass rate from Seattle, that also reflects what they think of Geno Smith, which is this is a guy who will read out coverage reliably and throw to the quick game beater for that coverage. Like he will find that for you every day of the week. Like with Russell Wilson, they skewed a lot more so the run elements first because he kind of needs that in his game because there's only so much quick game concepts you can call with Russell. Something we spoke about on the podcast. And there's also only so much intermediate stuff that he can access. So you sort of have to replace those with runs, gun runs, etc., etc. Different types of buckets, as Griff would term it. So there's definitely been a shift with how they approach it with this type of quarterback. But I think the rest they haven't really worked out. And it's hard as a play caller, I will say for Shane Waldron, it's really hard as a play caller to sequence plays and to get in a rhythm when you're in so many third and longs and you're just behind the sticks, because third and long is a real kind of odd anomaly outlier situation where you get really kind of unique defensive looks. Derek says, man, Fred Warner is like a cheat. He covers like a defensive back as a linebacker. Such a pain in the arse. Yeah, Derek, watching the 49ers is so upsetting. I said this in my preview because the style of defense they run is literally just like how the Legion of Boom played. Their corners, when they get a single receiver, will jam the crap out of the receiver. That's how they play zone. Like they'll play like a lot of kind of man press man style concepts within their zone structure on the outside. Fred Warner, the way that linebackers find routes, relate to routes, find routes, is like prime Bobby Wagner. Although what Warner does is he's a bit lighter. He brings kind of a 2023 dimension to what Wagner did back in 2013, 2014. So it's sickening because it's very similar. It's just shows what you can do. And man, their front is their pass rush is so good. Like the way that these DBs play, they know the ball has to come out again, a bit like Seattle. So they know that there's only a few routes that they have to cover on each play based off quarterback drop distance. Like the pick Geno threw, the DB knows that the ball, like he knows it's not going to be a fade. He knows it's an out. So they're trying to attack the DB's technique weak spot, which is his blind spot of cover 3. But he knows, like, no, the pass rush is getting there. I know the pass rush is getting there. I know I don't need to get deep anymore. I can just get back into my pedal and stick this foot in the ground and break for the out route and make the pick. And again, avoid certain situations where DBs know, hey, it's definitely pass. All goes hand in hand. Derek, do I know how long DK Metcalf's been doing that? Derek, I think most of the season there's been issues with the route running across the board, and DK's going for scramble drill too soon. That's part of it. The route, there's a serious, like I said, article Seahawks on tape.com will be out. Yeah, there's a lot of issues that they're having. Oliver, no problem. Thank you for the donation. And someone said, in answer to my middle name New Zealand question, Matty, Flight of the Conchords Brown. No, not quite. So, chat, what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly get more water and then we will do the defense. So let me just, that will be really annoying. Could I no, I don't know how best to do this. What I could do is remove myself. Goodbye. I'll be back in. It won't even be 2 minutes, but I'll be back just to get a break. Don't click off the video. It'll be after the break, defense, right? And we're going to look at how they allowed their explosive plays. And I'm going to explain to you reduced over fronts. So why that is a wordy thing, why it's relevant, how the B gap bubble is a problem, and how Kyle Shanahan just worked the crap out of Seattle, what they can do moving forward to fix it. Are they screwed? Is the defense donezo, etc.? Exactly, Kerry. It's halftime. Go and get a halftime show. Right. Time to get the water. Right, that was quicker than 2 minutes, wasn't it? Let me remove that. Okay. I'll let everyone tune back in. Thank you, everyone, for sticking with it. Oh, no. This is... I shouldn't have started the middle name topic, should I? Oh, dear. Benny Boy, my brain is blanking what the F could stand for. Benny Boy, depends how old you are as well, because obviously my parents picked my middle name, and I don't think I don't think my age group is that into what influenced the middle name. Jen, it's not Frodo. F stands for Fraser, Matthew. Well, that's not New Zealand, is it? Or is it? I could be showing my ignorance. Frankenville, 5011. Nope. Majombo, the Seattle Overload halftime show featuring Jack Harlow. Man, I hope you all had a good Thanksgiving, but that was... Now, I know Twitter loves a good pile-on, doesn't it? But that was bad. That halftime show was really bad. Especially because I was like, don't be rude about the guy behind Jack Harlow in the blue. You know, it's obviously someone doing sign language. Like that's cool that they're doing that, and okay, they're doing something, but you know, they're probably going to be doing sign language, but no. And then they just disappeared. I don't know. Yeah, that was awkward. But then what I also didn't get, and we spoke about it in the post game shows, why did Fox show Fox and one of the other ones, Fox and CBS, they showed the halftime shows in their full, right? Why did we not get a full showing from NBC of Steve Aoki on Thursday Night Football with the 49ers? Not that I would have been that interested in that, but maybe Dolly Parton just broke everyone. Fitzgerald, Kerry, I look like a Fitzgerald, huh? Okay. It's not Fitzgerald. I don't think anyone's going to get it. Justin, you ask, how do you feel Seattle's defense matches up with the Cowboys? Tomorrow we'll talk about that. But some of the stuff in this show right now is going to really kind of look at that too. Right. So, the defense. So, overall, they allowed 10 explosive plays on the day. An explosive play from Seattle's perspective is a run of 12 yards or more. A pass of 16 yards or more. It's the metric Pete Carroll's always used. And why he focuses on it is if you keep your explosives down, generally you're also doing a lot of other good things on defense. You're playing good defense. But also, for a team to score a touchdown on a drive without an explosive play is very difficult because you kind of need that big chunk to get you down the field before, there's only so many plays you can have before a drive kind of stalls out, as Seattle's offense has sometimes shown. So, yeah, it's a key to winning football, really, and generally teams who allow the least explosives and have the most explosives on offense, as I try and get my camera to focus, they tend to win football games more often than not. Now, I know I forget the exact figure, but it's like over 80%, probably 90%. I should have looked that up. Right, so let me first do this. Go away. What's going on here? Right. So Seattle this season has been very much a base defensive team. What that means, very much a base defensive team, very much a nickel-based defensive team. So they play 5 DBs. Sometimes it will be Jamal Adams in the slot. Sometimes it will be Devin Witherspoon in the slot. But they play 5 DBs, technically 2 defensive linemen, so the 2 interior guys, and then 4 linebackers. So that would be 2 outside backers on the edge, so Uchenna Nwosu at the time, and now Boye Mafe, and then opposite him, Derek Hall, and Draymond Jones has worked in there, but it's a 2-4-5. Seattle is a 3-4 personnel team in terms of their roster, and why they did that was to add 2 outside backer types you could rush or cover, but really, because they're playing so much nickel, and the reason they play so much nickel is for their pass rush, right? Like, the idea is that those 2 outside backers are always flying off the edge. They're always playing that forefront, which is good for, if you want to rush 4, gives you nice angles for the 2 edge rushers. It's how Pete Carroll told me back in November last year when they played the Buccaneers and they ran so much nickel. It's because they want to get rush 4, pass rush, accent the outside backers. That's why they do it. But against the 49ers, right? Let me get this up. Seattle continued with that approach, so that nickel-heavy approach, which is slightly surprising. Now, why is that surprising? Well, most teams in the NFL run a 11 personnel, so 1 running back, 1 tight end, 3 wide receivers looks all the time, okay? But the 49ers stand out because of how 21 personnel, so 2 running backs, 1 tight end, heavy they are. Because they have George Kittle, they have Deebo Samuel, they have Brandon Ayuk, they have Kyle Juszczyk, and they have Christian McCaffrey. That's their best 5. So, and that's kind of how they've, built their offensive roster. Let me get this up on the screen. Not now. Now, in that 49ers game, as I just share this with you here, and I should probably do something where I get like it in a fancier graphic. Let me zoom in on that. In the 49ers game in week 12, Seattle's defense played 65 snaps versus the 49ers offense with 23 snaps of 21 personnel. So 35.4% of the 49ers snaps are in that 21 personnel grouping. 18.5%, so 12 snaps of 12 personnel, so 1 running back, 2 tight ends. 1 snap of 31 personnel, so 3 running backs, 1 tight end. 5 snaps of 22 personnel, so 2 running backs, 2 tight ends. And in total, that is 41 of the 65 49ers snaps were in like that heavy personnel, so either 2 running backs, 1 tight end, or these things that I've just read out. Generally, you would expect a team versus that to be in base personnel, right? They've got their bigs on the field. We'll put our bigs on the field. Rather than playing with 5 DBs, we'll take a DB off the field. We'll put in an extra lineman. So from Seattle's case, and I'll talk about this in a second, but from Seattle's case, that would be like subbing off Julian Love, playing Jamal Adams at strong safety, and then playing an interior of Leonard Williams, Draymond Jones, and Jaron Reed, playing 2 edge rushers of Boye Mafe and Derek Hall, if you want, okay? But Seattle, in this game, despite playing 63.1% of the time against the heavy kind of personnel looks, they played 0 snaps of 3-4 personnel. So they played nickel every single snap, actually, in this game. So they weren't really matching body types with body types. Now, on the season, Seattle has played just 41 snaps of base personnel defense. Just 41 snaps. In a game, there is more than 41 snaps on defense. In this past game, Seattle had 65 snaps. So it shows they don't really use base that often at all. They kind of dabbled in it early in the season against the Lions because they respected their run game quite a bit. They dabbled with it against the Ravens when they needed to try and stop Lamar Jackson. Didn't really work. They looked rusty in it. And in actual fact, they've been more efficient against heavy personnel in nickel, like with 5 DBs on the field and the way that the front is run out of that, than they have running their base 3-4 looks, where they have 3 interior D linemen, 4 linebackers, 2 edges, 2 off-ball guys. Okay, so there is data supporting this nickel approach, although the base sample size of just 41 snap of just did I say 41 snaps? Yeah, just 41 snaps of their 3-4 base is very small, isn't it? But also because they don't do it often, they're not as good at it. Now, against the 49ers, that became a bit of an issue, and Shanahan's always going to get you beat. But the 49ers run game they were 33 of 169 rushing yards, 5.1 yards per carry average, and Christian McCaffrey went 19 carries for 114 yards at a 6 yards per carry average. So maybe dabbling with base a bit more would have been an idea, and I'll explain why that would have been useful for them as well, not just having an extra big on the field for an extra small. So I don't want to do that. I want to do this, don't I? So this is the tweet I want. Sorry about this. I will eventually get really quick at this. So I said the 49ers had 10 explosive plays, but though they were in that heavy personnel stuff 63.1% of the time, 8 of their 10 explosive plays came via the heavy personnel look. 3 out of 21 personnel, 3 in 12 personnel, 1 in 22 personnel, 1 in 31 personnel. And of those 8 heavy personnel explosive plays, 5 of them came on first down, 2 of them on second down. So early downs where, in theory, you could get away a bit more with playing base because it could be run or pass. You're not having to really worry about the pass. But also, the 49ers are quite a run-heavy team when it comes to their early down approach. Like I think Shanahan really does believe in setting up the run to the pass. Now, another interesting thing, at least for me. So Seattle does this, as I've said, to accent their 2 outside linebackers by playing the nickel look a lot. And I'll draw it up for you in a second. But they also want their DBs, the 5 DBs, like Witherspoon playing in the slot blitzing, Jamal Adams being in and around the line of scrimmage like that too. Also Julian Love. And they want to do it because of that. It also gives them coverage options. But red zone wise, they are the 4th worst defense in the league, allowing touchdowns on 66.67% of their defenses inside the 20-yard line and in. So that's a bit of an issue for them. And as I said, they've actually been more inefficient in base and worse in base, even though it's just 41 snaps. But even inside the red zone, they've been worse, even against the heavy personnel looks. But I just think against the 49ers, having base would have been a good approach. Now, let me explain before we get to the film and we kind of see the issues that they had. And I hope it will come up. I think it will. Let me explain how base is different. So this is... You can all see this, right? That's just lagged. There you go. This is going to be the worst drawing ever, but bear with me here. Here's our offensive line. I don't know why it keeps doing that. Anyway, so what number is Kittle 85? Okay. I'm going to give up doing the numbers. Oh no, I know the numbers. Purdy doesn't deserve one. 44. Okay. Then is McCaffrey 25? I don't know the numbers. I give up. Right? So this is what we'd call 21 personnel. So there's 2 running backs, right? One's a fullback, but 2 backs, and then 1 tight end, right? So that is what we term heavy personnel. Now, how Seattle lines up to this is they have their linebacker here, an edge, right? Their linebacker here, right? Their nose tackle here. Their 3 technique going towards where the tight end is, right? Their nose tackle in a weak shade like that on the center. Then they have, what do they call it? Or I'll just call it a linebacker. A linebacker here. A linebacker here. The nickel goes towards the passing strength. So against this look, that would probably be Jamal Adams. Their corner would play here. Their corner would play here. And their safety would here. And their safety here, right? So it's a nickel over front. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 DBs. And then 2, 4, 5 personnel. So 2, 4, 5, okay? And it's an over front. So the 3 technique goes to the strong side. There's 4 guys down at the line of scrimmage. The nose tackle shades to the weak side. Now, what this means, he's 23. Oh my gosh, thank you, chat. Disrespecting the best running back in the league. Right, what this means, and if you're playing a 4 down front like this, you have this thing called a B-gap bubble. So it's this thing here. So C-gap. Oh no, that's not going to work. Let me do a different color. So C-gap, B-gap, A-gap, okay? A-gap, B-gap, C-gap. Generally, offenses like to run towards the B-gap, and it can cause issues for teams as well because it's an inside gap which hits quickly. So this 3 technique is in the B-gap, right? This nose tackle is in the A-gap. But this B-gap is uncovered, so that's what we call the B-gap bubble, right? Now, if you're playing nickel, you have to have a B-gap bubble because... Oh, no. Fine. I'll just do that. You have to have a B-gap bubble because... And you're playing the forefront because they want this guy to have a wide-angle edge rush. They want this guy to have a wide-angle edge rush. We want 5 DBs. So we're going to have a B-gap bubble. But if Seattle had played their base look, which would... All that means is... The nickel comes off the field, right? And they sub on they sub on an extra tackle. So what should we call him? I'll call him an end. Let me just draw this a bit better. Then suddenly you are removing this B gap bubble because you're placing an end into that B gap bubble. So rather than it looking like a 4-2, suddenly what you can very quickly do, and let me draw the safety on the right side. So what you can very quickly do is get into a 6-2 look. So in the past, in the old defense, Seattle called this thing, they had this thing called stone, where you'd have the edge player here, you'd have Cam Chancellor down here, and it would be a 6-2. So it'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There'd be no bubble here. The only bubble would be this A gap. These linebackers would flow to where the fullback and the running back went to, and you'd have 6 guys down at the line of scrimmage. Now, in the preseason, Seattle showed a version of this where it was kind of adapted to their personnel, where the linebacker would be out here, the safety would be here, this guy would slant inside, and the safety would come off the edge, and they'd get into a 6-2 kind of post-snap, right? So they have this in their thing, but they just decided to be exclusively nickel in this past game. They decided not to play a base look like this. And remember that, whatever the system, whether it's a 3-4 or not, this could be Boye Mafe, this could be Derek Hall, this could be probably Draymond Jones, this could be Jaron Reed, this could be Leonard Williams, this could be Jordan Brooks, this could be Bobby Wagner, this could be Jamal Adams. Perfect having him come off the edge. This could be, Witherspoon. This could be Woolen if he was healthy. And this could be Diggs. So they have the personnel for this. They've got the roster for this. But instead, they insisted on not having base out there. And that's something they decided to do. Now, why would they decide to do that? Well, let me just draw this up. Shanahan, in the past, when he's seen Seattle play this, what he's really good at is running weak and putting this guy in conflict, showing him action here, and getting numbers to the weak side where there's difficult angles, but also putting this guy in a conflict where does he rush or does he have to drop? And how teams used to beat this is they would play action, or actually a good way of beating it is jet this guy into a wheel route, run a post, this guy has to run with the post, and then this guy doesn't know whether to set the edge or run with the wheel route, and it gets thrown over his head. The Browns did that in 2019 to Seattle. So there's ways to beat every defense. I just think having this extra layer would have been useful. And as we'll see because of how it removes the B-gap bubble, because it's pretty good at stopping a lot of runs, Seattle generally preferred this to 2 tight end looks. They'd usually play under. Let me explain how it adjusts as well. So, but I just think before I do that, I think having that extra layer would have been useful. So in terms of how it adjusts, well, if the offense is going to create a slot out here, then this linebacker does something which they called mug easy and plays in the curl flat to his number 2 here. He's already in the curl flat. This end walks out. This backer here plays in the B-gap bubble, which is an easy assignment for him relatively. We'll talk about how B-gap bubble is troubling. And then A, B, and then the safety's got the C with the backer coming in here, right? So it can adjust to stuff like this. If you got, say, if you got wide trade, so because we're all lining up to the tight end, the solid side. If he walked over here, then it just becomes under, which is a common thing Seattle did, where suddenly what they'd do is they'd just walk a bit over here, walk a bit over here, walk a bit over here, and then this guy would be the curl flat still, this guy would be the curl flat, hook, hook, post third, third, third. So it's how Seattle used to do it. And this guy'd probably bump out into a 5 tech, this guy'd play on the edge. So it has inbuilt adjustments, and it's stuff they did in the past, and I was just surprised that they didn't run it. And now we'll see how Shanahan was able to work their current structure. So I hope that wasn't too lengthy an explanation, but it maybe I should have shown the film first, but I found the data interesting. So, and you'll see how the B-gap bubble becomes a problem. So 1st and 10. So this is really intelligent from the 49ers. I observed this live and was kind of like, damn, this is going to be a tough one today. So they start off with their tight end here and their fullback here. It's technically 21 personnel because 21, 2 running backs, 1 tight end. There's your receivers. So tight ends here. We set our 3 techs to tight end. So here's the 3 tech. Here's the nose tackle. Here's the B-gap bubble. Let me do that in a different color. Here's the B-gap bubble. Let me get the pink. Here's the edge. Here's the edge. Here's the nickel, Jamal Adams, the big nickel. Here's the Mike. Here's the jack. Here's the corner. Here's the corner. Here's the free safety. Here's the strong safety, okay? But crucially, they've got them setting their front to the left. Now, he shifts over. So watch the front. This is the designated wide tight end who they're setting their strength to. Watch the front bump over. Now, the 49ers observe that and they alert the play. So they were probably going to run this way. Then when the front reset, they've probably shifted it, made a Oscar call, and gone opposite the 3 technique. So now, this is the B-gap bubble, but it's really, really wide because there's this big edge player, this wide edge player. Now, so the 49ers have got Seattle playing over to this side. Now, on the snap, they then motion back across, so they end up with 1 guy, extra guy, to where Seattle was weak. So they end up basically, Seattle, pre-snap, we saw they want to play with their 3 technique here if there was 2 to one side. But because the shift has happened during the snap, basically, Seattle's ended up playing the 3 tech to the side they would prefer not to play it to. Now, exactly, Kerry, it's very tricky of them, isn't it? So, a big crease happens here, and Pete Carroll spoke about this, about not popping out on the play. So, I'll talk about the gap responsibilities on the play. And I spoke to Jim McNally about this on Twitter. He coached in the NFL for years as an offensive line coach. And he was saying how to him this alignment doesn't make sense. Well, what Seattle should have done is when this guy comes back, Kittle comes back, these guys' gaps change. So they're playing middle field closed defense. So they have 8 guys to play with in the box. Bobby Wagner initially has the B gap and Brooks has the A gap, right? But this is the extra gap on this side. So as Kittle goes across the formation, Julian Love falls into this gap here. Brooks falls into this B gap here. Wagner falls into this gap here. Maffei falls into the edge here, okay? So they rock back their gap. So Brooks falls back well and kind of keys the zone path. The problem is Maffei and Wagner both play wide. Now, I think Maffei needs to, in Pete Carroll's eyes, I think Maffei, and based on Clint Hurt's comments, I think Maffei needed to get inside of that block. He plays upfield like he's getting boot, kind of. But the other problem is Bobby Wagner, after falling back his gap, remember, he now has this gap here, or potentially this gap here, but with Maffei here, he needs to be here, 100%. And to fall back 2 gaps would be too much. I think he's gone from this gap to this gap with that. Wagner plays it like he's getting boot. So this gap is Bobby Wagner's, right? But he's held over here with this, and it's just too wide a crease, along with Wagner not being the quickest to recover if he's wrong. So they basically end up with no one in that gap, which is not great. I think they also need an edge player there because it's too wide an edge. Even if Wagner were there, it would just cut back off him. I think this guy's out the play basically. Maffei, again, kind of an example of how you could learn a bit more. You've still got room to grow. McCaffrey also presses this crazy. Like, he knows this gap's here, but the way he's able to press up and then cut off the butt, right off the butt, tight off the butt of his is that his guard? Yeah, his right guard. Very talented player. You see it from this angle. I'll talk about the B-gap bubble in a second. But it's just a general lack of mass as well, isn't it? Because they have a tight end and then Juice-Check. Maybe they just don't buy Juice-Check as a legit blocker. But if you didn't have a... How you could play this is... Let me get this right. Yeah, so this guy wouldn't be on the field. Okay. You'd have a end here, big end here, right? Or actually, because of the wing, you'd probably have an end here, right? And you'd be able to play this linebacker a bit wider out here. You'd be able to tighten up here. You'd be able to have Jamal Adams down at line of scrimmage here. Suddenly, you've just got a bit of an extra commitment to the run game. You have linebackers who would be cleaner to flow to the football. And then on this type of motion here, it would be a bit tricky, but you'd just be able to fall back still with the play, and you'd just have this guy as a C-gap player, which would prevent this backside wash being so great. Now, against the pass, there's things which can happen, and also actually this type of motion where you've said this is the solid side, and then they've shifted the solid side post snap. That requires a bit of moving parts, but it would just give you a bit more mass and a bit more of an alternative option, which is in the playbook because they showed it against the Vikings. They just decided not to do it this week for the pass rush purposes, but clearly when 8 of 10 of the explosives from this heavy look, when 5 of them come on first down, 2 of them on second down, maybe you could have been a bit more aggressive. This is a very, very good opponent, isn't it? Now, we had a question on Reek Woolen, a bit earlier. 2nd and 9. I know I've been asked about defensive disguise. Chat, what do you think the coverage is here? Let me play this through. What does the coverage look like? So it looks like, to me, middle field closed, 1 high defense, curl flat, hook, deep third, rush, right? But what it actually is it's Seattle spinning into a Tampa 2 creeper pressure. So creeper pressure being, we're going to bring 4, but one of them's going to be an untraditional guy, Jamal Adams, and we're not going to show pressure pre-snap. Instead, we're just going to show our normal 4, but then replace this guy with a guy at the line of scrimmage, so we're only rush 4. So what it actually is cover 2. So this is, and yeah, Kerry, exactly right. It looks like cover 1. Forest, you're saying cover 3. So Seattle does disguise, and in this game, they really tried when they had the opportunity. This is 2nd and 9, but crucially also 11 personnel. So there's a bit more of an opportunity to do some stuff. They did try. Now, tight ends here, 3 techs to the tight end. Now watch Jamal Adams blitz. Here drops out, is that Maffei? Yeah, Maffei into a curl. So it's just Tampa 2 where you've got the middle run through, the curl, cloud, deep half. They've started utilizing Spoon's background or his full skill set to spin as a disguise player over the slot and spin into a shell from the nickel spot, which means you can do this type of stuff. They get Jamal Adams one-on-one with George Kittle, which is a fairly good matchup for him, although he hasn't been as effective as a blitzer this season. Even in these matchups, he's not winning as well. But the point is it speeds up Brock Purdy, and Leonard Williams makes a really good play of able to, one-on-one, he's able to spin back around the slot. Like Clint Hurt spoke about not running into a parked car. He doesn't. He reads how they're sliding and is able to spin back into the quarterback for the quarterback hit. Now the problem on the play, well, let's look at how Leonard Williams did that. So 49ers, this is a great example of why creepers are good. So the 49ers play 3 on this side, right? And then they have man here, man here, man here. It keeps Kittle in protection, and you're only rushing 4 guys. This guy's not even here. So they've wasted a good pass protector on a guy who's dropping out. They've also doubled Reed, and you've got your one-on-ones for Williams. You've 3-tech, who's dangerous. Draymond Jones, who's been paid to be dangerous and has done all right. And then Jamal Adams, who, in theory, coming into the season, at least fully healthy, without that painful knee, he's a really good blitzer, isn't he? So Williams does a good job of reading how they've slid their protection away from him, and I don't know if that's a design one-on-one or if he just understands that he's got a one-on-one here. As my keyboard goes weird, there you go. Right. Right. And yeah, Kerry, he did get back to the cover 2 shell quickly, and that's a really important aspect to all of this. Why is my keyboard not working? 1 second. There you go. Right, so if all else fails, plug it back in again. Right, so important that you get to the deep half, Kerry, because you've got to get over the top of this guy if he's going vertical. Forrest, Maffei on Jennings is he's just in a curl zone. I don't know why he turns and looks for it. Probably because they're anticipating the dig. But ultimately, it's okay because he's got help in the middle of the field. They're also, the quarterback's never expecting Maffei to drop. So that's kind of the theory of it too. So like the surprise element means he's not going to throw right behind him. Now, the problem is, so Reek Woolen focuses so much on the quarterback. As a cover 2 corner, when you get a, generally speaking, when you get a wide, I don't even know what he's doing. It's a cut split, so that's a bit difficult. But he should be treating a cut split, in my opinion, as an inside release, meaning I need to hinge and get underneath and get in the deep to short window of this guy, and then let the quarterback's shoulder, eyes take me to the 2 to the flat check down. So stick my butt in the ground at this point and then come back downhill for the check down when he takes me there. But Woolen doesn't really get eyes on the upfield, because to be able to hinge into this receiver up here, I need my eyes more kind of on his upfield shoulder to be able to get in that hip pocket. But he never really sees it. He just reads the quarterback. Diggs is trying to work over the top of this. He's been spinning, hasn't he? He's like the deep half over the top. He's playing quite deep, but he's expecting help underneath here. And if he's this deep and there's help underneath, it probably bends more towards his zone. Whereas instead, the receiver is able to sit this down on like a corner stop route. And it's underneath Woolen. Woolen misses the tackle. Diggs trips him but doesn't quite bring him down, and Brooks is there. So you'll notice after the play, Diggs is annoyed at Woolen because he's like, what the hell are you doing? Get underneath that route. Did you all see that? And he's like a bit confused. Part of the problem is, as a cover 2 corner, you don't want to get that out leveraged by two. Oh, not like that. You don't want to get out leveraged by this guy to the flat, because ultimately you have to break out there. So he's widened with that, but by that point his eyes need to be here. He just gets caught looking at the quarterback rather than locating where that is to get underneath it. Remember, it was 2nd and 9. So he never sees that this route's here. The other thing I'd say is, as a curl defender in cover 2, so Jordan Brooks here, you're relating to the 2 receivers, so 1, 2, 3. However, because of the creeper pressure, his 2, George Kittle for Brooks, stays in. So really, I was surprised he didn't get a tiny bit wider in his curl drop, but with how often San Fran runs the dig, he's probably really wanted to pack inside, but maybe a slight kind of widen would have been good, because he ends up kind of on top of Wagner. He locates the route. He's just expecting it's got to be Woolen. It's got to be Woolen, really. But this is why splits of offense are so important, something that Seattle's offense doesn't do very well. They kind of spread it out a lot. See how the cut split makes it a much quicker bind for that to develop. But yeah. And then this kind of missed tackle from Woolen, and just how he's just not quite on it, that's part of why he got benched. I know we were kind of discussing that. So that's one of the rare examples where it's not heavy personnel, it's 11 personnel. Yeah, Kerry, yes. So Brooks could have been a bit wider, but in cover 2, you don't want to expand out too far as the curl flat. What's up, Ty? Good to see you, man. I am still live. Okay, so this is cover 3, and this is a really frustrating one, and Clint Hurt spoke about the consistency. So cover 3, this safety's coming down into the curl flat. This nickel, Adams is in the curl flat. Hook, weak hook, so very important. Deep third, post third, okay? Now, the weak hook defender, so the player opposite where the most receivers are distributed in the pattern, is generally in cover 3 responsible for, when it's play action, sticking his foot in the ground and then finding the over the middle route and running with it. Idea being that if that guy runs a post, let me move my pen. If that guy runs a post, then the free safety can stay in the post window, and this guy can run across the field with the intermediate race route. So you're staying on top of the deeper route and also removing the intermediate. But there's other ways of playing cover 3. So Jordan Brooks is the weak hook player on the play. Just watch how he sees the route and points it out, because generally he would be responsible for on the boot play. This guy's basically blocking and then chipping out. This is the race route. This is the deep route. He'd be responsible for sticking his foot in the ground, finding it, getting in the hip pocket, running across the field with it. Diggs would play in the post. Deep third would bracket the deeper throw. This guy would get under the other throw late. Generally what would happen. But he points this route out. He sees the route. So he clearly, for him to do that when he's covered 2-2 at will, that kind of speed down the field on this type of route this season off his ACL injury. For him to point it out, he clearly expects someone else to play the route. But did anyone play the route? No. Now, given how Quandre Diggs plays this, he plays as though he's trying to get over the top here, kind of. I don't know if they expected, with it being 3 receivers over here, maybe the idea is that this safety, which is something that Seattle does, plays the over and Brooks is on the back. Because what you could do is you could have the safety play the over route, Brooks play the back, or you could have Diggs drive on this and on this route and the corner replace him in the post, or you could have this corner fall off, Diggs get over here, but that would be very risky. Anyway, Brooks clearly expects someone else to do it. No one does. And I don't understand. Like, it's 8:02 in the first quarter, 7-3 game. This is bloody vanilla. Like, this is every bloody team in the league runs this. How do you not have everyone on the same page in like a must-win game? How are you not ready for this? Basic shit. And stuff that Brooks is really good at. And you know, when they've used different tools, which maybe he thought they were using a different tool. Maybe they were supposed to and someone else messed up. They've been good at. But yeah, as Kerry says, that would be a robot technique example for Brooks if he'd done it. But he did not. Because he expects someone else to, and they didn't. Love's caught up with the back. Could have been a screen maybe, but I mean, that's just so easy for Purdy. Yeah. Now, it could be that because these two stay in, Brooks might just be expecting Spoon to drive the crosser, but Spoon doesn't drive on the crosser either. He thinks Diggs is going to play it almost, I think. But turning that type of route loose is wild. Just not on the same page as each other. And you know, what was that? The 1st and 10, right? You just give them, how many yards did they get there? A lot of yards. An explosive. This is a nice design, but it's also an example. Someone asked about Derek Hall earlier. Apologies, I forgot who. Saying like, you know, should we be concerned about him in a bad way? This is an example of Derek Hall playing well. So Seattle technically, you know, they're light in the box. They're playing with 2 high safeties. They're playing cover 2 on this side of the field. That's another reason that they like playing nickel, because let me just illustrate that. Actually, I'll do that later. But you can play cover 2 to the receiving strength if you're playing nickel, whereas if you're in base, you can only play cover 2 weak and cover 4 strong. Otherwise, it gets a bit too funky for the down at the line of scrimmage outside backer and his coverage drop. I'll explain that later. But here, a good run, but Reek Woolen really just doesn't show up. So, clever run design. This coming back is like 2-back. It's essentially power with this as the bait. So Brooks, as the weak side quarter flat player, has to relate to the number 2. So he widens out the box. Wagner rocks back a bit, and he gets done by the eye candy because this guard is pulling round on the power path. This guy's coming up to block Wagner if he'd been there, but instead his path is actually here to Adams. This tackle's getting a nice down block on a combo on the 3. So it's a common concept. We've seen Seattle defend this well in the past, where they just run gun power to the tight end side. But this eye candy is what stops Wagner from flowing. So if we just watch the effect of Wagner, he didn't see the guard pull because his eyes are occupied here. He's able to come back eventually, but he's just a tick late from it. But Derek Hall makes a great play. So Derek Hall here, he has to read what type of block he gets from his end man, and it's a down block. So he understands that it's a gap concept. So he he slows up this tight end who's trying to get to Bobby, remember, or Adams if Bobby's not actually going to be there. He slows up that tight end, and then he spills this block here. So by taking that on with his inside shoulder like he did, McCaffrey's wanting to hit it up in between these two players, ideally. But instead, because of how Hall has taken that block on with his inside shoulder, he's going to have to run it out here because there's no space in here. Adams is on this block here, which means... and that tight end didn't go for Adams. It was a crackback from the receiver, sorry. So yeah, the tight end's still going for Bobby Wagner. The tight end's here. So what it does is, for Hall to play it like that, the Reek Woolen is unblocked and is the cornerback force player on the play. So he needs to make the tackle. He needs to show up, set the edge, but if he's unblocked, he needs to make the tackle. But unfortunately, he gets juked out. The footwork, he didn't get close enough. It's a desperate one arm, got a fingernail on him, basically. With how Wagner's then sealed by the tight end, because even though Hall held up the tight end really well, shoved him in the side, and then spilled the block, even how Leonard Williams did a solid job of holding against the combo, dropping the knee, staying on that, they couldn't hold it up long enough for the time Wagner took to clear all this. And he had to kind of backdoor the block, because ideally Wagner would be here, but he's not. Then there's a crease because Woolen misses the tackle. Adams could probably have read that type of block better, but I think he sees the pull, and I think he's thinking, I need to get outside because Wagner's inside. It's quite a good adjustment from the receiver to then block it out. But Adams tries a lunge and misses. Good getting skinny from McCaffrey through that hole. He's a very impressive player. And then that's how you get a big run. But yeah, this is the play which got Woolen done out of here, because you got to make those plays. And really, with the angle, I think Spoon just runs through that outside hip. Yeah. So again, this is technically 11 personnel. So this is the other 11 personnel explosive play. Remember I said there was 8 which were heavy personnel. We've seen the other 2 which were 11 personnel plays. Good design here, but with just a bit more solid execution, you make the tackle for loss. Great, but encouraging to see this from Derek Hall. Almost 2-gapping, really. Okay. Now, this is okay, this is a great example of the B-gap bubble and the importance of that, and how I feel like, they could have matched it better. So 1st and 10, and you're playing nickel really to have, because Shanahan, and it was brought up to me when I was questioning it after the game, in the aftermath. Shanahan does absolutely carve up base defense, but he's carved up all defenses. I think it's just kind of most teams around the league, when they're faced with this type of heavy personnel, will play base. Seattle's just the exception, but they're just a good offense against any, what teams are putting out there. But I think Seattle plays nickel partly for the pass rush. Well, as I've said, they want to accent their 2 outside backers. They want speed rush. But this is insane. So this is tight end. Did I? I didn't, did I? I think I've mischarted this. I think this is see, with all the different formation looks, it can get confusing. Yeah, this is just 21 personnel. I don't know why I was so confused by that. It's just Debo. So running back, tight end, so 21, and then there's the 2 receivers. as I said, yeah, Kerry, I agree on that Reek play. He could have just lunged at his feet. So 1st and 10, 14-3 game, second quarter, and it's 2 in the backfield. Well, it wasn't to start off with, but then it is. Darrell Taylor playing this wide is for pass rush purposes, but look how wide the B-gap bubble gets. This is the B-gap, right? It's almost a, it's almost a C-gap bubble too, isn't it? Because of how wide Taylor is. Now, this is where I'll talk about how you can play cover. You can in theory play cover 2 to the strong side. So, but there's disadvantages to it too. So, Jamal Adams is the curl player of cover 2, or they call it, I think, vertical curl. This is a deep half. This is a cloud, like flat player. This is the middle run through, and then on this side of the field they're playing 4. So let me just not the middle run through. This is what they'd call a middle hook, who relates to the third receiver out in the pattern, the final third receiver. This is cover 4, so deep quarter, quarter flat player. Okay, so 4 on this side, and then on this side 2. Okay, and this big B-gap bubble. So Jamal Adams is in conflict. And, again, clever dressing up, clever usage of splits. It's still 2 receivers out here. Jamal Adams has to fit this B-gap bubble. His assignment on the play, with how they've got 2 high safeties, they're technically light in the box, with how Seattle's fitting the run this season. This corner shows up late against the run if need be. Bobby's in the A. Adams has the B-gap. He gets run fake towards him, so he has to be held by that. See, there's a really aggressive run fake. He's seen the guard pull. He has to at least hold his depth and be able to come up if it is handed off. But instead, it's just a sucker play into this little hole here. I will draw up how base would have looked against this. So, look, right in this window. Couldn't get wide in that, could it? Diggs is in the deep half. He's playing quite deep, but he's kind of expected to because he's a deep half player. Jackson is the cloud, the cover 2 player, I think. It could be, for all intents and purposes, this could be cover 4, but the way Diggs plays wide, it looks like 2 to me. Jackson has to play the wheel of 2. And the cut splits means he backs off because he's worried about the wheel of 2. So there's just this massive void where if there wasn't this B-gap bubble, Adams could have got much deeper, much quicker. Now, the other thing on the play, before I talk about how base helps, or even playing a bare front, is Bobby Wagner's the final 3 player. He's in the middle hook, but his job is to relate to the final 3. So what I mean by that is this is a 1, this is a 2, this is the 1, this is the 2. This is the third player in the picture, right? So when they fake this type of flow here and then do something like this, really there is 3 receivers on the right-hand side of the field, but also Wagner knows it's cover 2 on this side of the field, and it's, let me do this. Wagner knows it's 2 here and 4 here, meaning really it's almost more important to get into the 2 side of the coverage, especially when it's 2 by 2, because he can kind of man almost on this, he can kind of man on this, and we've got like an extra player here. We kind of need to get, especially with the B-gap bubble, I need to kind of get into this hole with how this guy's going to be held, and also the fact that, very simply, we're playing middle field open because we want to get 1, 2, 3 over 1, 2, and if we're faking this way, we want to get, and meaning it holds this guy as well, we want to get, let me just do this, 1, 2, 3, 4 over 1, 2, 3, okay? So as we roll it through, Wagner really, he's held by the run fake, but he's just so north-south and backwards. He doesn't even have a gap. They pull the guard, which holds him, which is nasty. But I don't think Prime Wagner makes this play, but he certainly gets more in that window. So it's partly, Wagner's a bit slower. But I'd also say schematically, this is a nightmare for Seattle. There is... You have to not ask this guy to play in the B gap. Now, how they dressed it up with this guy starting in the backfield was really clever. But at this point here, what they should have done is Darrell Taylor spike into the B, let Adams get underneath that and slow play to the edge maybe, or not ask him to fit into this big B gap where he can get a run faked right up in there. Just let him get depth on the 2. Let him play the 2 or 3 to the flat. Let his coverage take him to his run fit, not the run fit, then back to the coverage. So how would base help? Well, base would help because what you could do is... This is going to require a bit of imagination, but not too much. Let me just... So Adams wouldn't be in on the play, okay? How should we do this? So you would still have your... With that base look, when it was ever like a nub tight end like this, when they were playing Stone, the corner would come up and play... He could play force on the play like that. The strong safety would be here, okay, and he'd play like a... He'd play a deep third, okay? Right? This is all stuff that I'm sure, Seattle would be able to do. On this side of the field, you would have this safety here, 50-11, good to see you. You'd have this safety here play the number 2, and you'd have this safety here read the number 2, right? And they'd play Palms coverage over here. Or what? Yeah. They'd play Palms coverage. Okay. That would be the 3. Now what they'd have is... Because we've got rid of this nickel, instead, they'd have an end in this B-gap bubble. And this player here would be shaded over here. And he'd be in a much better position to play the final 3. But you'd also have... and you'd have no B-gap bubble. And this was called Reno. So whenever they were playing like their base reduced over front with the end inside here, and they got a slot formation, which this is basically a fancy slot dressed up formation. They would play basically on the backside they'd play man to man here, man to man here. And then to the slot, they'd play like Palms, where... Why have I drawn the strong safety there? I don't mean that. Where this outside backer would be here, but he'd probably walk off the line of scrimmage a bit, and he'd be able to play over that number 2 and get a reroute presence on 2. You could also, how they might play that is they might just bump the end outside, right here. Then the Mike has the B gap, but very, very important, this guy is already out here being able to reroute the 2. So this being open and this linebacker lining up in the A, they just have basically this guy really deep, and they have no body presence in this area of the field where you could have just, from how they've played base defense in the past, and search on Twitter, I'd suggest at CMike's spin move colon and then Reno, which, like the place, classic Pete Carroll slot adjustment where we play man over here, to the slot we play palms, we have an end here, this guy doesn't exist, this guy would walk off and reroute this guy, and we basically play in a 6-2 where we'd have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then this guy not here, but more body presence here. And also a guy who's more positioned to be able to stick his foot in the ground and get under that if he needs to on the route. And it's all stuff Seattle knows how to do, but I remember I spoke about the B-gap bubble and how if you're going to line up in the same damn front every time, even if you're going to stunt, which arguably stunting would have been a similar solution to help Adams have a bit less of worry of that B-gap and the run fake towards him. But even if you're going to stunt like that as well, it's still the same look each time. Like, they know this guy's the sucker pre-snap. Like, that's why they call the play. I feel like having an extra counter punch, especially when they're in, you could get away with base because you can get ways to not have, there's only 2 receivers. Like, you, in terms of your matchups, like taking Julian Love off the field, putting Jamal Adams back here, or you could even play a corner here and Adams down here if you wanted to. Seattle's inverted that in the past. Like, there is ways to match up. Seattle has the matchup ability in their base package where it's not damaging for them to do this because the 49ers are in 21 personnel, and that's a running back, that's a fullback. But yeah, it's all stuff that they know. They just have decided not to go that route. And I think next time we'll see them with more options. I mean, what is it? Look how wide that is. No wonder Adams is, they're just desperate for pass rush on 1st and 10. Now, maybe this is a real pass indicator formation for the 49ers. They would have done more scouting on that, but too easy. Now, Mike Jackson came into this game and he did okay, but this is a play where he was a bit cautious. Yeah, you're right, Forrest. Trent Williams does kind of widen stuff up, doesn't he? So they're a classic Seattle concept this season where they're middle field open. They have a choice to play cover 2 or cover 4, depending on the offensive split. But they're blitzing the nickel. So it's a fire zone. They're blitzing the nickel, which is often Adams, but it could be Devin Witherspoon. Here, cut split. Adams get, and then like a wide wing, which is clever for securing the end around. Adams gets cracked. When Jackson sees that, he needs to come upfield, but I think he gets his eyes inside, and I think he worries about how this flow plays out. I think he wonders if it's... I don't know what he wonders. I think he thinks he's going to his left, because he sticks his foot in the ground like he's going to try and pursue over the top of that. But if he'd just come up, that makes that fullback harder. But he didn't, unfortunately. And it's the type of play where, you've come off the bench, you really don't want to mess up. Gets blocks in the back as well. So, great. Brilliant. That's not allowed. But, yeah, that's how the alley, it's a good play to call when you're blitzing the nickel as well, because then naturally a crease is going to develop and you need to crack the place and there's a lot of space. And even if he had come up, Adams did contact the fullback, but even if he had come up, there's a alley here. Why is there an alley here? Well, they've got one less player in the box, haven't they? Because they're too high. But also, if I'm a linebacker, I'm keying off the flow of the backfield primarily, especially in middle field open. I need to key the fullback quite aggressively. So if he flows this way, then I'm going to turn him back. I'm going to fit off. So the fullback is what lies to the linebackers. Watch how Juice Check starts over this side. So gets them thinking, I'm going to come out here. Gets at Wagner going like this, getting thinking about turning it back. Then he goes split, which that's a classic kind of way of beating stuff where you run a counter footwork. So the linebacker's like, oh, I need to really shoot in like this. That suckers Wagner. And it also gets Brooks, but Wagner's the player who it really affects. Wagner goes there. The fullback's already going back across. You can see how there's a gap there when Jackson gets blocked out. So even if Jackson had gone quicker, that would have been the problem. And you see Leonard Williams doesn't know where the ball is, which is playing in the trenches must be so difficult sometimes, especially when they start doing misdirection blocks like that, pulling away from you, and then, yeah. So another good play from Shanahan. But it's also attacking a tendency of Seattle in a way that we haven't seen yet. And that's a block in the back. Okay. Also, let me know in the chat if there's any plays that you really want to look at. We've almost got through the the guard pull also helped sell that, didn't it? But we've nearly got through all the explosives. Nearly. 45. So 2nd and 3. So same motion, starting off in 12 personnel, but trips and then shifting. Seattle didn't adjust their front, so they didn't reset the 3-tech. 50-11, you're right, but there'll be a preview of that. What I'd say is how you look forward for the rematch is I'd be shocked if they play the same front every time. Obviously there's different coverages, different movements, as I've said, but I imagine they use a bit of base. And then watch out for jet into post wheel, because that will happen. This is a painful run. Yeah, Justin, they do have an answer for everything Seattle does, which is why, again, I think if you commit a bit more to the run, just having an extra big on the field, and you just change your pictures a tiny bit more, that gives you a bit more of a chance. So A gap, B gap, heavy. He taps his hip, which we'll talk about. B gap. No, that's not a B gap. C gap. And then Julian Love's outside here. So in terms of Hall tapping his hip, I think he's telling Brooks that he's going to try and play heavier, because generally he'd be wide. He might also be telling him that that's the run direction. Where's the tap of the hip? I know he does it. Maybe that's a different play. Yeah, it is, I think. But anyway, yeah, this is a decent edge. Like, he steps down and he wins outside on the tackle, and is an obstacle enough for McCaffrey to have to really kind of cut around that. He almost gets contacted by his tackle. So it's a really good edge from Hall. The problem is Brooks is kind of like beat out by the guard, this is another reason why teams play a 2-eye to stop the guard being able to free release onto the B-gap backer. But this guard does a really impressive job. And really, this is Brooks' play to make, and he isn't able to. Reed plays upfield and kind of, he doesn't get reached, but he's unable to get off the block. But it's Brooks not in the B gap, gets sealed out there, and then it just hits the edge. Brooks is able to get off eventually and make the tackle, but that's after yardage. Someone saying Jaron Reed looks held. Does he? It's kind of inside the frame. I see what you're saying, but and yeah, it's important to emphasize that this 49ers offense is really good, and the defense has put in some awful field positions. It's just that inconsistency in certain execution, which is annoying. And then I feel there's a few things that coaching staff wise, there's no perfect play, but there's things they could do. So this is 22 personnel. So 2 running backs, 1 fullback, isn't it? And then that's not a tight end. 2 tight ends. With the 1 receiver. This is a really good design. It's moving the pocket, and that impacts the coverage. So they're just in cover 3 buzz. So all that means is Diggs coming down into the strong hook, Julian Love playing in the post third, curl flat, hook curl, curl flat, deep third. There's a slight lack of understanding on this play too, to me. I'll talk about it. So good moving of the pocket. Let's move that out of the way. Talking of moving. Moving of the pocket away from the rush gives Purdy enough time. Annoyingly good at throwing the ball like that. Like, that's just a nuts throw. And, yeah. It's the dagger touchdown, isn't it? Because it was 24-13 at the time. You're like, it's do or die. It's kind of over. It's definitely over now. And, Seattle actually covers this pretty well from a intermediate perspective. You can see Bobby Wagner sticks his foot in the ground, finds the over route, would have been in the pocket. But from the 49ers with that half roll, it's a double post concept. So this is the window dressing for Love. Because the quarterback's rolled out this way, Love's already kind of merging this way. Spoon's in a deep third here. This is the post route. They're looking to kind of access this window, get the safety sucking down on this, even though Wagner's in the hip pocket, and then throw it over the head, outside of the safety, inside of the corner. Spoon tries to stay square for as long as possible, but this cut split is such a tough route because the receiver is able to accelerate and widen him, and then he still has a 2-way go. So it's also an unexpected route from a cut split, running a post route. Also, a really impressive cut from Ayuk here. Look at how he's able to make that so skinny. Because of how flat he cuts, that allows the quarterback to lead him upfield into that window. But Love, I personally think Love has to understand that his teammates finding this over route, even with the half roll, he can stay a bit more middle and find that. And Spoon is playing this route so aggressive at the top of the stem because, well, partly he does get a bit rooted up, but also he's really not meant to give up that route. He knows, or he thinks he knows, he has help in the post, so if it does bend out like that, he should have some help to his inside. But just a good design. Unfortunately, Love never saw this, and the timing of it's impeccable. Obviously, the underneath Diggs is merging with the rollout. Adams, I mean, could he be under it? Realistically, it gets thrown right into that deep area. The underneath can't do much about that. It's an absolute dart. And yeah. Yeah, that's the thing, Forrest. Kittle is it is a post, but it's flat and slow. Especially after that first little cut. It's very flat and slow. It's very much like bait. But, this happens so fast in real time. We're rewinding it, watching it at the comfort of our homes. We don't get to see it just once like they do. And the real key is how they move the pocket, because when he rolls and he's not even looking at it, the route, and then he just comes back and bang. I mean, it's pretty crazy. And again, a really good concept from the 49ers. What I'd like to see, though, is Diggs' responsibility, Luke, is in the strong hook of cover 3. So really, he's got to relate inside to the 2. Think about the 3, but be inside the 2. In the old days, the landmark would be 10 to 12 yards, 1 yard outside the hash, I think. But they don't really play like that anymore. They kind of relate to receivers a bit more. But Diggs has to melt with the quarterback rollout, and the eyes are looking here to start off with. And look where it's caught. This is on the post safety. It's something Clint Hurt mentioned as well. Now, one thing I'd say is what would I say? Oh yeah, so you could play base to this, or you could play base to this and get a very similar effect to the coverage they're playing. That thing I spoke about earlier. What effect that would achieve on the play is you could pressure Adams a bit more easily, or threaten pressure, but really, it's just a great play design. Maffei almost got there. But they've already kind of tightened up this weak edge, which stops their pass rush. Anyway. Then the very next play on the next drive, they got an explosive. Again, they're still playing. This is the play where Hall taps. So they're still playing big nickel. 4:14 left in the fourth quarter. 1st and 10. So there's the shift. They didn't reset the front, but you see Hall taps his hip. I think telling Brooks maybe that he's going to slant, and then Brooks has to get over the top of that movement. But if that hadn't been the case, Adams C, Wagner A, Brooks B, he's thinking about not getting out leveraged and hooked by that guard like he did in that last play. Hall might have also just been telling him that the run was going that direction, but another good edge set by Hall if he was meant to get to the inside gap. But Brooks did kind of get hooked. And on this play, Wagner's slow getting into the A, while also Leonard Williams kind of just pads back on the tackle. Are they moving the whole line here? No, I don't think so. Williams is just like kind of late, and then he from that point just decides to chase it down. But Wagner also is late into the A, and so that's how a big run happens. But really, it's the front side doesn't get it done to start off with. And again, it's why teams play a 2-eye, but it's also why if let me go to the wide copy. Right? If you got rid of... Well, this is quite an easy way of looking at it. Imagine this guy was here as a 5-tech, and this guy was on the line of scrimmage as a linebacker. This is your strong safety. Suddenly you've got extra mass, and it's harder for the offense to release guys free up the line of scrimmage. Here, because of how wide this B is, even with Hall skinny and down, the guard has a free release off the line of scrimmage to your B-gap backer. Like, you can try and post-snap bullshit your way into this, but ultimately, maybe Hall was supposed to hit the guard. I don't think so. Pre-snap, basically, that's what they're doing, but instead of having an extra lineman on the field, they're stunting and then having this guy be like the edge player, having the strong safety or the safety on that side be the edge player. But if you actually just played this guy here, and then an actual edge here, and maybe even had Adams here, and this guy skinny down here, and this guy didn't exist, suddenly you'd have a bit more mass to play the run. And I think that's something that we'll see Seattle mix in on early downs more. And I'm shocked they didn't, because I know, I'm repeating myself, but and Shanahan will find ways to beat that too. But you've got to change the picture a bit more and change the personnel more, the matchups more, and not just give them a free releasing guard to your backer, your B gap backer. Or if you're going to do that, at least have someone in the C gap who's a bit more of a presence, and then an actual proper edge setter, not a safety. By proper edge setter, I mean like an outside backer. So yeah, and they have the personnel. All right, then final explosive. This is one where it's just a situation thing. So 3rd and 3, Kerry, your robot stuff. Diggs is the weak hook, but they're all thinking it's run. When everyone thinks it's run, you can do that. But the one thing I'd have liked to have seen is they have to gear up for the run and try to get off the field, but because it's 3rd and 3, I would have liked Adams just to go at the quarterback here. There's nothing. He's technically the flat player, but there's nothing holding him to the flat like a slide route. I'd have liked him to take his shot and just gone at him. He sort of, I don't know. Anyway. So, I was just a bit surprised, especially after the preseason and the Lions game, where they respected that run game, and there's some similarities with how they motion and use wings and all that sort of stuff, and slightly surprised we didn't see a bit more of a diverse approach from Seattle on defense. And I think in the return matchup, I think we will. Now, Dallas doesn't have an offense like the Rams, where they have all that kind of run action window dressing, and they can really get into a fairly effective, at least for 1 or 2 drives, it is under center and boot action kind of game plan, right? They also don't face an opponent like the 49ers, where we've just seen it's kind of the same personnel out on the field each time, but they dress it up in different ways, and they have a lot of kind of specific great ways of attacking a defensive structure. It's more the case that the Cowboys are kind of a more traditional gun NFL offense, and Seattle in the past has had some really good answers for what Mike McCarthy presents. It's also nice that Dallas doesn't have a fullback, I don't think. But I'll be looking at them tomorrow, hopefully with a special guest. Thank you, everyone, for all the donations tonight. I've really appreciated that. Comment section has been good. Let me know in the comment section down below as well what you would change. As ever, suggestions welcome. Monjombo, I hope you enjoyed your coffee. That sounds great. Oliver suggests my middle name is Matthew Flamin' Hot Cheeto Brown. I don't think Flamin' Hot Cheetos came from New Zealand. I really don't think they did. 5011 points out that Philadelphia and the Cleveland Browns are also bottom 10 red zone defenses by percentage. They are. It's very true. I just was looking at the red zone because I was like, to me, being able to put an extra body on the field when, it's like that kind of condensed area, being able to pressure in a slightly different way, and then being able to commit to the run in a slightly different way would be useful. I don't know. There's probably slight relation, but as I said, their run defense in base has actually been worse this year from an efficiency and just basic yards per carry standpoint. They've just run a lot less base, so they're not as good at it, and there's a smaller sample size. I think there's still a time and a place for it, and the thing is, in nickel, they're running over fronts. Their base approach would largely be over fronts too, because there's carryover. So it wouldn't be like dramatically different for them to get it right. The stuff they've really struggled with in base was when actually against the Ravens, they ran it like bear. Like There was no shade. There was no reduction. It was just 3-tech, 0-tech, 3-tech. Like they ran base, not last year. Well, kind of bit of last year, but 2020, 2021. Stick front defense. And that's just because Lamar Jackson's a mobile quarterback. But against the 49ers, they play over/under 3-4 stuff. All right, thanks guys for the comments. Jack, glad you enjoyed. Monjombo, glad you enjoyed. Justin, glad you enjoyed. Tell the story of the scar on your eyebrow, says Jack. Maybe another day, Jack, because that's quite the story. You should have seen the other guy. Forrest, love to keep learning from you. Thank you very much, Forrest. That's kind. Really good to see as well. New people in here, and also returning names and faces. Appreciate that a lot. Tell a friend about it. Someone said I should post these in Reddit. You post it in Reddit, please, because I don't want to self-promote. I don't want to get banned from the Reddit. The Reddit's quite messy as well. It's a war zone out there sometimes, especially now with the team where it is. I'm sorry that I wasn't able to bring you as much positivity as usual. But yeah, I'm enjoying this. Every time I see like a Seahawks tweet or an interesting press conference quote or whatnot, I'm like, yeah, I'll include that. I feel like I forgot to say a detail about the defense, but there's always more, isn't there? There's always more that I could talk about. Nope, I don't think so. Right. Thank you, everyone. Retweet the video as well. Thanks, Kerry. I think I'm getting better at the details of the hosting, the pulling up the film, the highlighting, the attending the chat. Yeah, and the knowledge, I'm just winging it, so that's fine. All right. Henry, good to see you. Don't apologize for being late. Although it's literally, you're probably the last comment I might read out. Prediction tomorrow. I need to watch the Cowboys. Maybe we could watch some Cowboy stuff. But what I'd say is at least their offense isn't a bloody nightmare of like window dressing and like constraints and like you can't cheat this play because we'll get you with this play. I think it's a bit more not conventional but just different and more kind of execution of each individual concept based. So that's a plus. But yeah, that defense is a bit nasty. All right. Thank you very much. Have a good evening. Good to see you, Henry. Goodbye, everyone.